We should be live. We should be live. Hold on a minute. We good to go? Let me see if the sound is on. Sometimes something happens. I wouldn't count on it. So here we go. Since like the last welcome Punish Grunt, welcome Chuds, we have some fancy new little chat emotes. I made the maximum possible. They only let you make you 6 until you get more members. So the more members, the more, there we go. The Burger King guy. Yeah, the more members, the more kind of gay little emotes we get. After the last stream that I quite enjoyed, it was about that kind of like nostalgic dump we had. I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you've seen this debate. This is Hassan, Destiny, Nick Fuentes, and our good old friend Sargon of Akkad. I feel like this was very, very good because this was a lot of people's first time seeing one of these guys. And Asmongold did a great job moderating from my memory. So I've not really... I don't know what they actually discussed, but I remember this being absolutely peak. So if they go over stuff that's just like totally not important, then we're just gonna ignore it and maybe skip through it. But let's just kind of dive in and let's just see how it goes. And in the side we got a bit of Burnout 3, got some other PS2 games, and yeah, we'll just kind of see how it goes. I've got skipped in a little bit. I think they're just doing introductions, so let's just kind of dive in and not waste any time. If we get bored of this game, I've got a couple of other PS2 games, and if all else fails, we go back to Warcraft. Also, let me know how the levels are. I think they're okay, but I think the sound should be okay.
Usually makes you less nervous. So.
Yeah, true. Okay. Listen. Okay. Below Asmongold, we have Sargon of Akkad. He's a popular YouTuber, sometimes known as a skeptic. He's a member of the UK political party UKIP. Welcome, Sargon. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. It's great to meet you.
My pleasure.
Would you like to...
Volume up me or volume up the actual show? In a sec. Oh, fuck.
Tell us about your political stances.
I'm just an English liberal. I think that the less the state interferes in people's lives, the better. I think that, I don't know. I think that I should live in a sovereign country, which is why I'm a member of UKIP. I'm for individual rights. I'm pretty socially liberal.
That's when he's a member of UKIP. Remember, he like destroyed UKIP. Where everything politically he touches, he destroys.
And I'm quite fiscally liberal as well, to be honest. I think I think capitalism is definitely the best alternative of the options available, the best choice of the options available. Pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have to the right of Destiny, Hassan Abi. He's a former Young Turks contributor.
I'm still at the Young Turks, bro. What the fuck?
Damn.
This is a harsh way of telling you you've been fired, man. Live on air. Sorry.
Hassan Abi, he is a Young Turks contributor, a socialist content creator who has recently started streaming on Twitch. Wait,
Did you lie, Hassan? Are you a socialist now?
That's not. I mean, I say I'm a leftist, but I don't mind if people say socialist.
Well, why don't you explain where you are coming from then? Like, what are your political affiliations? Where are you coming from?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm broadly speaking an anti-capitalist. I understand that there are certain structural inefficiencies built into capitalism that create a lot of conflict, and I think we need to address those problems, not just at the social level by advocating for social change, but slowly but surely through democratic procedures, ultimately give ownership back to the workers. And that's my perspective.
Okay,
Great.
that makes sense.
thanks for being here. It's a pleasure having you on, Hassan. And yeah, thank you. Next, under Destiny and to the right of Sargon, we have Nick Fuentes. Did I pronounce that correctly? Fuentes?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. We have Nick Fuentes. He's a...
What year was this debate? Is this actually released at the same... Oh, fuck, I'm racing now. When was this actually... It says like 2020.
American nationalist.
So I don't know if this was when he... I think he said he got banned off of YouTube at 2019. Yeah, apparently got banned off of YouTube after the stream. So I'm not sure if this was any way related, but you know, this is when he was first kind of coming up.
Who attended the Charlottesville rally and claims he had to leave Boston University because of subsequent threats. Correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Would you like to describe some of your political stances, or?
Sure, sure. I also do a podcast, America First. That's kind of old news, trying to put that behind me. But yeah, to describe my political views, I would call myself a reactionary, a nationalist, a paleo-conservative. If we're talking about the size and scope of government, I would probably say I'm basically indifferent to the size of government so long as the will of the people is executed, so long as virtue is upheld. On economics, I would probably say I'm a capitalist, although with major skepticism.
Alright, it's like a space bar and it's like crashed my game. I meant to crash the oh no. Sorry, I've already fucked everything up here. Close game. Exit and save state. Let's go back in. I was about to say, like, the his take on like the government being the right size it should be. I mean,
with major trepidation.
I don't think people say it should be big, should be small. It should be the size that it should be. It doesn't need to be any bigger than it needs to be, but it can be big if it needs to be.
Because I think things have not really gone so well in the past couple of decades with capitalism, so I am for a significant amount of regulation. So that's about where I'm at.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So before we start, let me I know this is weird, but let me grab a Coke. Okay. I'm a little parched. Okay. Give me a second here.
When he says grab a Coke, I think he's literally doing a line of Coke, because isn't he a huge Coke head?
Started. We'll get ready for the first topic. We're going to give the first group of people about 5 minutes or so to give their opening thoughts, and then the other group can give their rebuttal, and we'll go from there. We've got a number of topics set up for you guys, and we'll get ready for them as soon as Train is ready to go.
I am. Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay. Shoot. I forgot what monitor this is on. Give me a second here.
At least he's having technical problems as well.
Good. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that, boys. Okay. So this first topic, as most of us know, Blair White was supposed to be here with us.
Oh God, thank fuck.
You know, I got a last second, in the time from 2 hours cancellation. So the first topic was, we had it in here. I wanted to get her thoughts on it and see what she thought and kind of get everyone involved.
Blair White is probably one of the least informed people on trans rights, so it's probably better she's not here. Don't worry.
Okay, well,
that gives away the topic then. The first topic, obviously.
What the fuck is Blair White doing these days? That's one of those people who you're always kind of aware of, but just due to what they are, you just have to keep it at arm's reach. Not just physically, but like, digitally as well. You want to be far, far removed from that kind of stuff.
So I thought these were published. I'm sorry.
Surprise! Yeah. So yeah, the first one we want to talk about is the Trump obviously made a transgender ban to where transgender individuals are not able to serve into the military. That becomes effective on, I believe, April 12th. And there's been a lot of obvious, pushback on this for a number of different reasons.
Am I right in thinking that tranny ban, is that even like undone? And so when you look at actually like Marines and stuff, there's like a huge, not to like shit on the military and the Marines and people joining the army, but is there not a huge predisposition for like, real kind of hardcore Marines? A lot of them become like trannies. Like, remember that guy, Ben Shapiro? Remember when Ben Shapiro was in like a debate with somebody? And that guy put his hands on like Ben Shapiro's neck. He goes, you better watch your mouth, you're going to end up in a hospital. That was like an ex-Marine, wasn't it? That was like a Marine who became like a huge tranny, and I don't think that's like a one-off sort of situation.
Reasons and people stating how much money trans people cost, etc. And I think that we probably should start, since we have this is kind of like their home team here, Destiny and Hassan. Why don't we go ahead and let the out-of-state team begin, and Nick and Sargon, if you guys want to give your opening thoughts on this subject.
Sounds good. Who wants to go first? Sargon, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Honestly, I actually don't have any particular feelings on the Trump transgender military ban. I mean, joining the military isn't a right, so I mean, it's really down to the administration in charge, I would say. Personally, I probably wouldn't, but I mean, I'm open to hearing arguments from both sides. I'm really not invested in this one, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think.
Well, Nick, I'm sure is. So let's hear. What do you think, Nick?
Absolutely. That's a little rough, Sargon. You're leaving me out to dry here. A bit of a centrist. That's okay.
Well, I ain't said we're not on the same side.
Yeah.
I mean, you might not say that these days. They're more kind of more aligned. Nick's kind of stayed, I guess, more in line with what he's saying now, while Sargon is pivoted, because this is a few years after the debate we watched last week, and already Sargon is 2 years further down the line, where he's a bit more based, isn't he? Your buddy was following Destiny back then. Yeah, I mean, I used to watch Dave Rubin when I was like 2015, when he left the Young Turks. I thought Dave Rubin, this guy's smart. He wants to fight the progressive left. And look, we've all listened to retards before. I mean, you're listening to me right now, so we're all in that boat together.
Okay, well, I'll try to convince you. I'll try to win you over.
Yeah.
So, my feelings on this are basically ambivalent. Also, I look at all these people who try to get involved in the military, and I just sort of scratch my head and wonder why. We look at women who want to join the military. We look at transgenders who want to join the military. And I think, why should anybody want to be so gung-ho and excited to do what? To go fight for Israel in the Middle East, to go and do all this other stuff abroad that really has nothing to do with our national interest? I will say, however, that if we look at the end game, what is the mission? What is the purpose of the military? Well, the purpose of the military, I guess theoretically, what the purpose of the military ought to be is to defend the interests of the United States of America, foreign and domestic. And I think that if you're looking at how we can fulfill that end, if we're looking at how we can fulfill that directive, we ought to have people that are the best and the most capable to perform those tasks. And I'm sure probably the opposition here understands what my position is going to be on this, but basically I don't recognize the legitimacy of this gender dysphoria, transgender identity. This is my position as a Catholic. This is my position as a conservative. I look at people who begin to transition either chemically or through surgery, or even just superficially changing their dress or something. I look at that as somebody who has some kind of issue with early childhood development, probably somebody who perhaps is suffering from other issues mentally. Now, I'm not going to say that everybody who does that is mentally ill. Fortunately, we live in a country and we're on a...
I think like late stage porn addiction leads people to become trannies as well. I mean, that's kind of like you can be hit with a traumatic event as a child that kind of like speed runs you into a hypersexuality, a la sort of like Milo Yiannopoulos. That was a fucking terrible race. But I think the long term way people can do it is through, what's that thing called, like autogynephilia, where people like dress up and they kind of like jerk off. That's like phasing into becoming a tranny yourself, because it's not necessarily you feel like a woman. I think it just becomes a pure sexual perversion, and you're wearing your sexual perversion out and about all the time. I think that's what a lot of it is.
Streaming service where we recognize the rights of everybody. So I guess in this current paradigm, everybody can basically do as they please. But I feel that somebody who decides to embark on that kind of, if you look at the surgery, it's barbaric and ghastly what they do to their own genitals or their own bodies. If you look at the chemical components, again, it's very rough. Anybody who decides to do that, I don't believe is in the frame of mind where they're able to go into a high stress environment. You look at normal people who go into this high stress environment and they come out with PTSD or other kinds of issues. I just don't think that's the best thing for what we're trying to achieve, whether that is, the right thing we're trying to achieve, which is serving our...
If someone says you start to view sex as purely as an act of pleasure, therefore using it as a feel good, it's okay. I think as well, it's like people see it as part of their identity, rather than just saying, I am XYZ, I'm like a, whatever your profession is, in one of your interests. People introduce themselves these days. I'm a she, her, I'm a they, them, I'm a pansexual this. It's like your sexual proclivity is your identity. So that's what they kind of put front and center of everything in their life. And that is, when you really think about it, that is just so sick and twisted that, these people should not be in the military.
Our own interest or serving somebody else's interests. So while I am basically ambivalent, I do believe that if we're trying to have a military that has efficacy, that is effective in what it's trying to do. I don't believe that having transgenders involved is really going to advance that cause. I don't think it's really going to facilitate that directive being achieved optimally. So I'm basically against it.
Do you think that it will actively work against it, just for the, to get down your position a little bit more?
I do believe it'll work against that.
All right, Hassan, what do you think?
Here we go. Here we go, Sam.
I'll open on this if you don't want to. This is one of my favorite topics.
I mean, I'm gonna throw it up to Destiny in a second. The only thing I was going to say is that unfortunately, the
I'm
way
gonna
the
say something
military-industrial
retarded.
complex is
Just
set
you
up,
wait.
the United States currently treats the United States military as a jobs program, and the Department of Defense is the largest single body that hires the most trans people worldwide. And the fact that Donald Trump on a whim has decided to ban transgender troops from serving and leaving out more than 12,000 active duty service members in the street without a future is kind of disrespectful. But even beyond that, it is also not cost effective. It actually costs more money to track down whoever is trans and kick them off service. It costs, even if you were to allow all trans members to get
Doesn't cost anything. It cost me to look up, look down, and he just say, "No, thank you. Can you please take your business elsewhere?" I was looking into the United States military because I was watching some of those clips from, who's that wee guy, the wee curly haired guy with glasses that does finance kind of reports on people just to kind of laugh at them for being retarded, spending all their money. And the majority of the people on the show is everyone's a veteran, and everyone gets all this money for being a vet. So it seems like an amazing scam where you can essentially join the military. Let's say you're fueling up a plane. You're standing on the wing. All you have to do is just fall off, land on your arm a little bit awkward, or just lie. Just say I slipped and fell, and all of a sudden you get disability for life. It just seems like a really, really good scam. That if you're struggling on what to do in life, join the military, take a fall. At least that'll kind of keep you going for a few more years before you really figure out what you want to do with your life. Oh fuck! I'm about to win this race. Here we go. Here we go. Yes, there we go.
Gender confirmation surgery, it would cost a fraction of what it costs for the military to pay for Viagra. So, and as far as...
Would I marry my cousin? No. But they are debating in the UK House of Commons whether it should be made illegal, because it didn't need to be made illegal because no one married their cousins. But now you have a massive insurgence of a population that marries their cousins. It's actually quite an interesting issue in the UK. I think Gavin McInnes, I learned off of him that I think a third of all stillborn births and birth defects come from the Pakistani population. Even though they only make up 6%, they're responsible for a third of all birth defects because they're intermarrying and interbreeding. So that's the effects in real time.
As combat readiness goes, medical professionals happen to disagree with Nick, but I'm sure, given the fact that he already said sneakily that normal is the opposite of trans during his conversation, that his perspective is a little bigoted and maybe a little misguided too.
Isn't that just definitionally correct though?
I should have said, I think normative would have been technically definitionally correct, as opposed to, okay. I think normal would.
I think we can debate the definition of normal. Is normal what's average, or is normal what's acceptable? It can go either way. Destiny, what about you?
Yeah, okay, so firstly, the premise that we have the best and most capable people in our military is already not true. It's volunteer military, right? So basically, some people volunteer if they pass whatever requirements we set for them to pass. So whatever your requirements are, coming out of basic training or whatever, background test or whatever, as long as you pass that, you're good to go. So this was already studied by the Department of Defense. Our military's already had transgender people in the military. It's anywhere between 1,000 to 10,000 people who are transgender, who are identified as transgender people are in the military, and they perform fine. This idea that everyone's going to get PTSD or all these people are going to die in combat, 80% of military roles are non-combat roles. A lot of what our military does, not all these people even deploy, let alone actually see an active combat zone, let alone when you are deployed or even deployed into things that are even near combat zones, right? There are plenty of jobs that could be filled occupationally in the military that are non-combat roles. I mean, for the other stuff, in terms of like the other kind of loaded things, like the surgery is barbaric, or the chemical parts, or I mean, I don't know. I can only go by what the science says there, and I mean, all of that is approved by the
My
FDA,
science.
and
What does my science say? I can't have an
transgender
opinion
people,
before I hear
live
the
their lives.
science.
So I don't know how that's relative or how that's relevant to any of the military stuff. But yeah, I guess for the military stuff, like most roles in the military are non-combat, and the effectiveness of transgender people has already been evaluated by the military, and they've already been integrated into the military in an effective fashion. I don't know why we would change that with weird executive orders.
Could you elaborate a little bit on what you said about the effectiveness of the transgender individuals? And
sure. So, for instance, so in the military, there are tons of non-combat roles, right? These are support roles. These are these can be things domestically. There are just tons of these types of roles. Transgender people already seem to be able to fill these roles, and they do it in an effective manner. So, for instance, one of the things I believe Trump said was that, well, when you get transgender people in the military, they have all this gender dysphoria, and it's ruining their lives, and they need all the support and their help. None of that was ever borne out in any of the research. The military already did, a lot of research related to transgender people to see if it was effective to have them in the military, or if they were wasting a lot of money, helping them transition and all of this stuff. And none of that ever seemed to be substantiated. It seemed like the integration of transgender people into the military was working pretty effectively.
Do you concede in any way that transgender individuals per capita would cost the military more than a normal individual, or excuse me, not normal, normative individual?
No, you were right. Normal.
Per capita is kind of a hard way to say that. Like, if we were randomly selecting transgender people from society and throwing them into the military, then yeah. But the people that make it into the military are already passing. There's already a selection happening there. These are people that have made it out of basic training, and these are people who have already been evaluated to be like good members serving in the military. So once they've made it past whatever requirements they have to go through to get into the military, then yeah, then they're fine. Sure.
No, I mean, I saw like clips of those reservists. Remember, they're kind of like having, I think when Biden was being inaugurated, they had all these like US reservists kind of like patrolling the Capitol. And I was taking a look at some of them, and honestly, these people, I can't believe they passed. They could not do. You could just tell. I mean, they look like they should be serving you like a like cafeteria food. Never mind patrolling, where with like a fucking gun. It's not elite human capital. But then again, when you see like the Venezuela thing, when shit really needs to get done, who do they send in? They send in a group of 20 elite white guys, and that's where shit gets real.
So, Nick, do you think that them passing those different qualifications to be into the military grants them the ability to maybe have the government potentially pay more money for them, or do you think the means outweigh or the ends outweigh the means, or what?
I don't really care about the fiscal cost. It's actually sort of interesting. Well, maybe not ironic, but interesting that Hassan Piker would refer to the cost right out of the gate. My qualm about this was never about fiscal cost. People talk about, especially on my side, things costing a lot of money. The government prints as much money as they need. And so I tend to look at it from
it's the most common argument Republicans use when they don't want to seem like they're being bigoted. And it's incorrect. So I just wanted to put it out there.
I am first of all, I'm an Afro-Latino and a civil rights activist. I don't really identify as Republican, and it's sort of a shame that you would lump me in with them. It's actually a little bit prejudiced, I think.
Well, we just had a left versus right debate, so it's understandable that I would address that.
Is Nick Fuentes white? What do you guys think? What does the chat say? White, yes or no? Would he be in the ethno state?
Perspective.
Well, you can rationalize your bigotry all you want.
Well, I think that we should focus our discussions and our debates towards the opinions of other people that are on this show, rather than the larger political party that may or may not be associated with.
Yeah. Can we be serious for a moment? I think Hassan should apologize. There are good people on both sides of that Charlottesville march. Okay.
Yeah.
True.
No, you're right. Apologies to all the Nazis. Sorry, boys.
Well, Nick, you were actually at the Charlottesville thing, right? Weren't you?
Correct. I was at Charlottesville.
We should finish the
counter-protester, right?
No, we should finish the transgender thing.
No,
what was cooler, Charlottesville or January 6th? Because I remember when I was like Charlottesville, maybe it was still kind of, I wasn't that paying much close attention to what was kind of going on. I wasn't super, I mean, I was political, but not that kind of in it. But see, when I was watching January 6th unfold in real time, like, holy fuck, that was crazy. I remember being like a call with my friends, being like, you've seen this? And it's just like the waves of people. And it was just there was such momentum, such energy. It was crazy. It was pretty epic. Charlottesville was sad. Yeah, it was the beginning of the end for many. as we said last time, Richard Spencer never really has ever recovered from Charlottesville. You're at Charlottesville, based. Hopefully you had a good time.
We're going to, and I just want.
I have one at a time, please.
So obviously, Nick, you said that you were Catholic. Do you feel like your religious persuasions have any sort of, they educate your decisions or your opinions on transgender individuals at all? And do you think that manifests the way that you feel about them serving in the military?
Of course.
Okay.
From a philosophical perspective, we believe that what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman is something that is greater than this sort of ad hoc adjustment that a person could make in the middle of their life. You know, I look at a man who decides to have, again, a barbaric, I will use that, it is a loaded term, a barbaric and ghastly surgery to move things around and snip things and put them inside out and all this other stuff, and they can wear a dress and go on different hormones. But we believe that sex and gender, number one, are the same thing, but number two, are greater than these material adjustments that a person can make. And moreover, we find that gender is deeper than the individual. We find that gender does have with it certain responsibilities, does have with it certain natures and temperaments. And so I basically reject this idea that gender is something that doesn't exist, or it's so arbitrary that anybody can serve in the military, or it could be changed. You know, I guess it really lays bare this fundamental difference in what we believe about what gender is. I think that's why it really is a greater debate, because, and I'll point out, the reason I'm basically indifferent to this issue is because, as Hassan and Destiny have pointed out, you're correct. The military is this large bureaucratic enterprise. It does act as a big employer. It is volunteer. Most of the roles are non-combat. So having transgender troops in the military, is that the end of the world for our operational capacity? Frankly, I don't think so. I think it is a symbolic issue. And you look at Trump instituting the transgender military ban. Of course, this is playing to his base. Of course, this is not something I don't believe that should be the priority of the administration. And you're right, probably the costs are high to adjust it, but it is a symbolic issue. It's symbolic about what our country is going to be, what the administration says the country is going to be, and personnel, procedural things are a big part of that. So I think that's really the fundamental issue we're trying to get at.
I think a big part of like what Trump has been doing, looking back at what Nick just said there, a lot of it is symbolic. Like a lot of the oh fuck, I had my mouse, that confused me there. Like the ICE raids, the deportations, a lot of that's symbolic, because a lot of it's, you know, it's happening quote unquote, but it's not really. If their policy was mass deportations, we would see big numbers, but we don't really see big numbers. We just see posts on X of people getting in scuffles that break out and somebody gets killed, and it happens again and again. It's not really doing anything. It's just the symbolism of, you know, having people in the street. But again, Trump's going to be out of office in a couple of years, and if the Dems get in, all that symbolism, because there was no substance, if anything, it's actually going to be a net negative, because the retribution, which the left loves retribution, it's going to be way, way harder. Here we go. Big finish.
Wait, can I ask a question? About...
Oh, okay.
I'm really curious. Do you think women should...
What are big numbers to me? Well, didn't they not say... I mean, are the numbers just the same as essentially what was happening in the Obama years? They've stopped publishing the numbers. I don't know how many they've actually got out. 6 million's quite a lot. I mean, that'd be a good start. I think it's like 10 million that came in from under Biden. I mean, realistically, you can't get rid of 10 million people in 1 month, but 1 million a year, that could be a good start. That's like, we're going to stride towards 1 million in a year. They have to put a number on it. Otherwise, there's not really any kind of, you know, they could just say it's a huge number, when in perspective is actually not amazing. 50 million since 2005, I would believe that. I remember like a Devin Stack, a stream I was watching, which if I find the documentary, I might do a video on it as well. It's all about the border crossings. They're talking about the 80s. They're talking about how, you know, the huge population surge in the 80s, and these people are just kind of flooding in. But literally that was happening, or has been happening for 40 years since then. So it's just like, you know, it's, I don't want to say it's over, but it's starting to look like that way.
Should be allowed to serve in the military in any
I was actually about to ask the same question, but with gay people.
So was I.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that, Nick?
Yeah, no, I think it should just be straight men. That's
Really?
Is
Is there a particular reason why you don't think women should be able to serve or gay men should not be able to serve? Or
Yeah,
is it
well,
just your feelings?
sure. Well, we'll start with women, I guess. It's actually kind of funny to me. What kind of world do we want to live in where we're sending our daughters, sisters, mothers into the Middle East to get exploded?
Well, you were just talking about symbolism, which is precisely why I have an issue with it, because I'm looking at it currently, as I described before,
Can I
from a
finish
perspective
my
of hiring
perspective here?
practices.
Seems
Nick,
like you just want to go ahead and insert your talking points. You want to hear what I'm going to say here? Because I'm going to lay out an argument.
No, I just want to make sure that you don't frame it in the way that you want to frame it.
1 second. Can I interject?
Hold on. You mentioned you doing 99 calls, and it was in a building in Glasgow. I can't remember what company do 99 calls, but I had an interview to do that job. You had an interview. I thought you said you have an interview. I could like give you some tips. Well, did you get rejected? What was the guy that interviewed you? You never heard of asthma until 2025? That's interesting, because I see this debate. A lot of people who watched this at the time may have known of someone. Like back in the day, when was this, 2019? I knew of Sargon. I knew of Asmongold because I like to play Warcraft. I loosely knew who Destiny was, but didn't really know who San. I saw him a few times in like Young Turks. Nick Fuentes, I'd seen some of him, like him kind of rising on the on YouTube and stuff. Didn't know who Trainwrecks was. I still don't really know. I just seen like clips on him, how he's just like an absolute drug fiend. I don't know if he's calmed down a lot, but he's a bit of a crazy guy.
Project here. As we've stated.
So the guy with the 99 job. You got rejected. Seems like the easiest job possible. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the job is brain dead. The job's like easy as fuck. That's why you want to be like the next kind of level in that job. You can only do that for like a few months before you want to, end it all. But yeah, it's a shame because they usually let anyone do that job. The amount of people I had to fire was unbelievable.
Before earlier, only 20 or so percentage of the population of the military even sees any combat. So I do think that it could be, Nick, do you feel like it's disingenuous for you to say that you're sending your wives and daughters out to war whenever less than half of them would ever even see any sort of a threat at all?
Well,
I don't think it's disingenuous.
Before you answer that, sorry to jump in. I'm actually not that familiar with US military practice here. Do women actually see frontline combat in the US military?
They do. That was greenlit very recently.
Yeah, of course.
That's pretty fucked up. I didn't realize they actually serve in the front lines. That like totally changes the sort of like dynamic. This has literally never happened in any other time in history. What's wrong with Mark Collette? Well, what's the news? What's the drama? Somebody give me the lore dump.
So you're right.
So
you're right.
Trans people, by the way, just for the record, trans people see combat as well.
Okay, thank you for that. The point being is that if women are being sent overseas into these horrible conditions, I think that's actually shameful for a country to do. And you say, well, there's these non-combat roles where women can be in. I don't believe women should be in the non-combat roles either. I don't think women, frankly, I don't think they should be in the business of government. I believe that, again, and I talked about this with my Catholic
like that
values.
One.
This is where my position comes from, is informed by the fact that once you acknowledge that gender is distinct and different, once you understand that men and women have biological differences, which are physical, they're mental, temperamental. I mean, there's far-reaching distinctions between the two. You must necessarily then recognize that there are consequences for their function and role in society. We don't simply believe that we're all humans, we're all pink on the inside. The only difference is arbitrary genitalia, reproduction organs. No, we believe that men and women in their distinctions have different capacities and therefore different functions. So to see women going out and doing all these different things, I think that we should take care of our women. I think that our women should be, frankly, raising the children. They should be taken care of, not in these sorts of positions. So I also think it has something to do with the dynamic when you have mixed company in a bureaucratic institution. The military, I believe, should be a boys' club. Maybe you can have women in other non-combat jobs in the private sector, or maybe even in the public sector. But I believe that in the military, it should function in such a way that you have this brotherhood, you have this element where everybody's on the same page. What tends to happen when women enter into a situation where it's formerly an all-male space is it changes the dynamic, and we witness this all over the place in many different.
Anyone else notice that? Because I remember kind of noticing that even at school or at university, like I don't have anything against women necessarily. Like I have a girlfriend, that's fine. But I'd never went out my way to like find female friends. Like if there was a woman, I just didn't really find them interesting. You know, I don't want to be their friend. But as soon as like they came involved in like kind of like a part of the circle, all the guys kind of dynamic changed because they're playing. In Scotland, we use the phrase grafting. You're kind of grafting, like, you know, laying bricks. So they're playing this grafting game where they want to like, oh fuck, that's my door. Bear with.
Different formerly male-dominated spaces, you know, we know that there is a dynamic that exists between men and women that does not exist between men and men, and this kind of goes along with why we should allow.
Do you have any like data to back up into your point?
I don't really
not to cut you off, but like you keep going on these tangents, and I'm afraid it always feels like it's just your kind of personal perspective and like what you want society to look like or what you want the U.S. military to look like, and I would really be.
I do think
to find out what your
that is a very good question, and Curtis, do bring up Hassan. Nick, obviously you are bringing up a lot of different assertions, right? That women change the dynamic of a workplace, they change the way that the military would function, and whether that's true or not true is, you know, it depends. But do you have anything specifically, any empirical data or evidence that shows this, or is it just your personal observation?
Well, I basically
Yeah, say what you like about Asmongold. I think he is doing pretty well in this kind of debate as like a mediator. You know, he's always been kind of, because I think back then he was just not political at all, maybe a little bit, but you know, nothing like he is now. But he's proved himself to be a good kind of, you know, putting yourself in other person's shoes, which is a good kind of good faith way to approach a debate, which a lot of people on the left can't do, which is why we can never actually have a real conversation.
Reject the validity of empiricism over a priori kind of rationale, a priori justifications. So,
can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So an a priori justification basically says a thing is true in itself. A thing is true, and we basically know this because it's simply common sense. So I know Destiny and perhaps even Sargon are big believers.
Wait, I just have to interject for one quick second. A priori and common sense are not even remotely similar to one another.
Yeah.
But keep going.
Let me finish.
Yeah, go for
That's
it.
great. That's great, Steve. So basically, Steve and I'm sure Sargon and maybe even Hassan believe in this stuff where everything must be determined by a person in a lab coat. Everything must be determined by a study. We have to crunch the numbers. I think we know. I think we know our own nature. I think we know from history. I think we know from tradition what works, what does not work. We're all human beings. I think everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. So we could also look at all kinds of other studies. I mean, there's a lot of things that suggest that men and women are biologically distinct. I don't know if you need to study to demonstrate that, but maybe you do.
Biological distinction aside, I was asking about combat readiness or like women serving in the military and whether there are like negative consequences. Your assertion wasn't just that like men and women are different. You also then you have a fundamentally different perspective than both Destiny and I do in regards to the efficiency of women and men commingling inside of the military, or even in the public space, or even in positions of government, apparently, which I didn't know you held.
I think
what the fuck is that retard talking about?
Is that the presence of women in these? Well, sure. Well, whatever you.
We got Ben Shapiro over here.
What he's trying to argue is the fact that women do change the dynamic. So even if they're not necessarily affecting their own combat readiness, and even if they don't direct.
That's a question you need to actually. That's not something that maybe women don't understand, because they don't understand what it's like to be in a sort of brotherhood, because they only know as being, you know, the girls that want to be just like the guys. It's not. You're not just like the guys. Only guys understand what it's like to be in a group of guys, and as soon as a woman joins that in any capacity, it's changed. The dynamic's different by its very definition. So I don't think women can actually understand that, because they don't understand. It's like, you've seen those memes when like women find the guy's group chat. You know, it's just, that is a good expression of it.
Directly contribute to this, they do it indirectly by being present. Is that correct?
Yeah, so
basically correct.
Okay. I think this argument, we don't go anywhere here because we have to get a little bit more fundamental, right? Okay. So Nick's positions on
hang on, Destiny. Before you jump off, I actually am interested in Hassan's answer to that. Do you think that women don't change the social dynamic of male-only spaces.
I don't think that change in that social dynamic is actually yielding negative consequences. And if you put up like rape statistics or some shit like that, that is not on the fault. That's not the fault of the women who are serving the military, but more so the fault of the lack of regulation or our culture
I think
surrounding.
that the regulations already against.
That's actually a very good point,
I
Hassan. So
agree.
you're saying that the problems that
Good
occur
points.
are not necessarily the
I don't think it's against Israeli military practices. I think you're actually allowed to like rape prisoners. Wasn't there like a story like a few years ago when there was like an Israeli soldier? I think he used like a poker, like a fire poker, to like, let's just say, do terrible things to a prisoner. He was then reprimanded, and there was protests in the streets of Tel Aviv demanding the guy should be let loose because they believed it was his God-given right to torture the prisoner with an iron poker. That blew my fucking mind. That was like insane. But then again, we should not be surprised by these things. But did you not hear what Hassan just said there? He literally just admitted there was a change in dynamic, but then he's probably going to argue that it means nothing. So, again, it's the leftist argument. Okay, now it is happening, but now I'm going to tell you why it's a good thing. This is happening in real time. And by real time, I mean 7 years ago when this debate came out. And finish.
And it happens with same sex as well.
It's not necessarily because of the women themselves, but the men that are causing the problems because of the women. Now,
and it's not just the men that are causing the problems as well. Men are causing the problems for themselves as well. I'm saying these are like issues that exist.
Look, man, this happens in war.
Got my green juice.
I fully understand how this works. It's very basic, and I think that the argument that you're going to use, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're going to use a pragmatic argument and say that even though this is true, you still think they should go with whatever works best. Is that correct, or?
Also, anyone enjoy my last video that I made? I was like quite desperate to not make a video about, because you see when you find historic archive documentaries, there is unlimited number of these documentaries about African Americans breaking out in riots. There's like non-stop. So I wanted to find a bit of a shift. I've got another one coming up soon, but I was desperate to find another topic. But I found a few other kind of like interesting kind of documentaries that are good to look back on. Drinking Soylent Green. That's my protein and creatine. I'm gonna smash the gym after this.
Where are you on that subject?
Is that addressed to me?
Yes.
That's Sonia.
Who, me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I'm not going with the pragmatic argument. I'm arguing that I'm arguing that you can show me a study that says it doesn't change its operational whatever, and I'll tell you that it's politically motivated. I'll tell you that what we know about gender, what we know about who we are, supersedes that. I mean, these things are necessarily following from these conclusions. And I think it's interesting because you asked Hassan, you said, do you believe, or I think it was Sargon who asked Hassan, do you believe that women change the dynamic? And he jumped right into, well, maybe that's the case. However, it shows that it doesn't change our operational readiness. So if you concede that we have these biological distinctions, we have social dynamics that change as a result, it necessarily follows that an all-male military is different from a military with men and women. And just simply look at the dynamic that is caused by introducing women to the military. Can we say, without having to look at some fucking lab coat showing us, well, according to my calculations, can we say that the latter military with men and women, and you have all these dynamics and relationships, is more efficient than the former, than one which is full of men? I don't think you can. So I would wonder. I want to hear. Do you concede that?
Do you think the United States military, as it stands today, is more efficient than the United States military when there were less women enlisted? Because women have always served in some capacity.
Just listen to the way he fucking talks. It's like he literally talks like that meme. Well, actually, God, that's fucking infuriating. That is just unbearable. How is this guy as popular as he is? This is kind of the reason why I decided to actually get into making videos and then I try streaming, because I realized some people think, I couldn't possibly do that. I don't have the personality for that. Look at these retards that do it. The bar is so low. The bar is so low. So why couldn't you do it? And here I am today. So, yeah.
Different time, different
more effort in some capacity, but you're talking about efficiency, and yet you have nothing to put it up against.
Well,
like, so I think
and beyond this, like this is a silly talking point because I'm using this as an analogy for the world that Nick wants to build versus the world that I think we should exist in, and we both understand this concept. That's precisely why I think like combat readiness is only as good as a talking point. But what we're talking about simply is like women working and coexisting alongside men as equals, or same with trans men and trans women. That's precisely why I'm talking about this. Otherwise, like, I don't care about the military's imperialist mission of going out and like fucking killing brown children so that some Halliburton executive can make money.
Yeah, I agree. We both hate the military's current objectives and what it stands for.
Not the heckin' brown kids.
I think we're on the same page there, but I think that is the fundamental distinction. You say, well, we don't want to live in the world Nick is building. We want to live in a world where we treat everyone equally. And I'm saying that by the very nature of who we are not equal. We may be equal before the law and we're equal before God, but we are not equal. And if we're not equal, if we have these distinctions, which are qualitative and quantitative, then it necessarily follows we have to have a society where difference is allowed, where you have specialization, where you have people living in accordance with their own unequal, different, distinct nature. And so it's actually you who wants to build a world. I want to live in a world where it's conducive and it works alongside our nature, not going up against it. You want to live in a world where we're going to bend the society, bend our nature to our will. We will force everyone to be equal. Even though equality has never existed in history, empirically, I mean, there's just in no way, shape, or form is there any evidence, you talk about empiricism, for equality, but because you think, according to your ideology, that this is the positive good, this is the vision we all must strive for, we are going to force society to its knees, to bend it to our will. And I just think that's folly. I think that's.
I think
okay, so wait, hold on. I gotta
changes, right?
Oh, okay, all right.
I gotta talk about both. Okay,
Sorry,
so the problem is that right now, okay, this issue we can't resolve this issue because these are natural extensions of our underlying philosophy, right? So even if we could demonstrate to somebody like Nick, even if we could say, look, women serving in the military makes the military more efficient, Nick is going to say, well, women serving in the military are contrary to kind of like the baser nature of what a woman is, right? Would you agree with that, Nick? That even if women did make the military better, that doesn't necessarily mean you want them there because you don't think that's what their role in society ought to be, right?
Well, I would say that you probably wouldn't be able to be shown legitimately that they improve the military. But yeah, even if you showed me a study that said something like that, I would say, yeah, basically.
Okay, yeah. So this entire conversation is already kind of talking past the point, right? So now, even if we could demonstrate, so I think it has been that there is trouble on integrating women into the military because, you know, there's sexual harassment, there's rape, stuff that doesn't necessarily happen when there's only.
Remember the US military did like the sexual harassment campaign, and it was literally a picture of like a white woman accosting like a black guy, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly how it happens. Let me see if I can find that, because that is just like absolutely peak sexual harassment army ad. Maybe that's gonna bring up something. God, Brave is so shit. Yes, there we go. Who remembers this? Because this definitely happens every single day. I see this down the street. I see this in my gym. I see this at the hospital. This exact same situation happens all the time. And these poor black guys just want to like live in peace. But they're too busy being accosted by all these white women. It's an absolute disgrace.
Men, all that stuff still does happen when there are men. What somebody like me or Hassan would argue was that, because we're liberals, right, that we would argue that building a society that enables people or empowers people to make decisions relative to what they want to do is more important than trying to force everybody into some kind of like naturalistic setting, right? Like, well, women tend to have these features, men tend to have these features, therefore we should relegate them exclusively to those roles in society. Most people, at least in liberal society, are not okay with that. Like, typically the weird thing when you go down that kind of like that naturalistic route where you say, well, we ought to do what we were born to do, is we end up drawing very arbitrary lines in some places. For instance, I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody in here regularly hunts for their food or grows their own crops, right? You know, we're very small. We have small, weak bodies. We don't exercise as much as we probably should. And the reason we don't is because we have other people in society that take care of that for us, right? We don't necessarily have to follow any hardcore natural distinction in terms of what our bodies are designed to do, because we built a society that allows us to explore other options. And all I do is I merely, and I imagine Hassan as well, you just kind of extend that argument to other things as well, right? Is it possible that if this was like a life or death survival scenario, that like a tall man might be better in the military than like a small man? Yeah, sure. But we don't live in life and death scenarios in every single aspect of our lives. So we generally allow people to do things that make them happy. That's usually what we prioritize over what their bodies are intended to do. This is why we give insulin to people with diabetes and we don't let them die in the streets.
I don't know if you listen to this sort of like inceldom, Blackpool, looks maxing, being short or tall is a matter of life and death.
This is why we have farmers that grow
That was a
food
bad
for people that
crash.
otherwise couldn't hunt for
Bad
it.
crash.
And it's why we enable people to make decisions in society that would otherwise make them happy, even if it's not 100% what they would have been born to do.
Are people happy in this society? We have probably the freest, most liberal society in America today. And tell me, you look at the suicide rate, you look at the rate at which people are consuming antidepressants. Do you really believe that given total and complete agency, absent tradition, absent the natural law, people are really happier than they were 100 years ago? Because I would probably disagree with that. And maybe people might say that people are less happy because they're forced to conform to certain expectations or Republicans or white supremacy. But I think we all know that the pursuit of happiness ends in misery. The pursuit of satisfaction, of fulfillment, living in accordance with our nature is what affords people that deeper happiness, that deeper satisfaction, that people are acting according to their teleological purpose, people having a purpose. So, for example, I would posit that a mother who has 5 children and took time to raise them and know them and rear them in the way that she wanted to according to her morals, I imagine that that mother is probably more happy than a 20-year-old girl who decides at her peak childbearing age, says she's going to get educated, and have a career, and she's going to go make spreadsheets for
but why did they fight
GE
for it then?
or something.
Do you think that they didn't know any better?
Yeah, I do. I think it was complete.
Okay, so you know better than they do.
It was a
minority Obviously.
Frequently, and yet you don't want to admit that women may personally feel, perhaps personally feel that they want to also participate in society in meaningful ways.
They're misguided.
Yeah, what sort of question is that? Do you know more than a 20-year-old woman? Like, yes, obviously.
I don't disagree when you say stuff like we are losing our sense of purpose and whatnot, but I think that's a consequence of alienation. Wait, what?
Nick, do you think people should have the right to be misguided? Because it's not necessarily, even if you accept all of these things to be true.
I mean, I don't take the
laws, the natural orders.
Why are you taking up the assert? Like, he's just saying that they're misguided. Like,
no, I understand that. I'm following.
He's building on the premise.
And yeah, the premise of them being misguided. Do you think that they should be forced, or basically forced into fulfilling these different gender roles?
Before we continue this, if someone's on a point, let them finish. If you'd like to rebuttal, please let them finish all the way. And this goes for everybody here, please. Thank you. Asman, continue.
Yeah, I was asking, like, obviously people can do, like, they can be a mother of 5 or they can do spreadsheets. And I think the question here, and what this ties back to with the transgender military ban, is the fact that they actually don't have that choice. And do you think that it's fair in a free society to prevent people from doing what they want to do?
That's a great question. And I think, and I'm going to answer this question directly, the problem with this kind of idea is that we at once want a culture where people are encouraged to make the right decisions, but maybe they have a little bit of liberty to maneuver outside that.
Okay.
And this is a pretty open-ended question, because the question is, at what point do you say you have so much liberty that you get a society like we have today? Because I would say, for example, today, I think a lot of people who come at this issue where I come from would say that we have a society that is corrupt, which is misguided, which is, to a great extent, there's a lot of evil, there's a lot of misery, which is self-inflicted. And we would say, well, on the one hand, we would like a little bit of liberty. At what point backwards in history can we trace back the moment when it led to this inevitable consequence where it's a free-for-all, everybody's making the wrong choices? So I would probably say you look at maybe like 60 years ago, for example. And although there were not laws against certain things, there was a culture which discouraged people from sort of stepping outside of line. I think that's probably what we have to have, but I don't think you're able.
Somebody said, yeah, Sargon's a Wignat now. Sargon, yeah, Sargon at this point, he is becoming a bit more based, but he still views Fuentes as someone he needs to distance himself from. Whereas now he will probably quite happily, subscribe to a lot of his views, but still kind of keep it at arm's reach, because Fuentes is still kind of like I don't know why Sargon just doesn't go all the way. He's already, a political figure. He's already kind of like been kicked out of, he destroyed UKIP. He's not allowed in reform. He may as well just go all the way, I know he's in the UK. I know there's some implications, but look at people like Steve Laws in the UK. He's going hard. And some people may say even a bit too hard, but we need to have that kind of like, Steve Laws had a good quote these days, we're talking about kind of remigration and demographics. You can't really meet people in the middle anymore as a means to not scare the normies. That's what he said. But we need to scare the normies, and he made a great point. We need to kind of have the super extreme position, so when people do come over, we can kind of achieve it more, as opposed to already relinquishing ground, and then it's just going to be, well, for those who are not in the UK, the Reform Party, which was going to be based, going to be cool, it's just over now. It's a shame. The Reform Party had an open goal, and they've already fucked it.
Able to do that without a long tradition of these traditions and natural instincts and so forth being put into the legal code. So it's a very tricky issue.
Well, I don't think it's
real quick.
Closing thoughts here.
Destiny or Hassan, if you'd like to respond to that, please go ahead, and we'll wrap this up. Hassan,
Go ahead,
Destiny.
Destiny.
Fuentes' nuclear and his takes are inconsistent. I would say partly. I would say because when you watch some of his show, he does a talk show. He's talking by himself night after night, and you listen to some of the things he says. It's sometimes hard to know when he's trying to just be funny, if he's just doing a hyperbolic thing. Because end of the day, Fuentes is very, very funny. It's hard to like deny that. If you like him, you don't. You gotta admit he's funny. But to maintain that kind of level of like humor all the time, you're always kind of pushing the boundaries and stuff. Always trying to like same. He had that Jeffrey Epstein quarter length fuck big crash. I don't have to deal with that. Jeffrey Epstein thing. It was just he's doing it to kind of stir the pot. I don't believe he thinks the paedophilia is cool, but he does think, there's a certain aura to him, but he doesn't necessarily think, oh yeah, he's a nice guy, I want to be his friend. But again, when you're bombarded with clips and you do a show every night, one person can draw a totally different kind of perception of Nick as opposed to somebody else, which does muddy the water and just makes everything kind of confusing in a way. But he's funny, so I can't not like him,
Yeah, sure. I don't necessarily. Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily a tricky issue. It's just like, unfortunately, like this conversation, we're talking past each other because there are more fundamental things that need to be resolved, right? But like, my answer is always going to be that people should be allowed to fail rather than forced to be relegated into some role that society has predetermined is optimal for them. That generally in Western society,
I disagree with that. What Destiny said there, ultimately, because I'm sure you've got the same in whatever country you guys are from. In Scotland, we have a sort of like underclass of people who just live in abject, they live in council houses, government funded houses. It's not as if they don't go out and get a job. They're literally unemployable. It's generations of people being unemployed, being on benefits, addicted to drugs, addicted to alcohol, young age, perpetual cycle of poverty that is just a few break free, but many don't. You could argue, yeah, these people have the right to make their own mistakes and be fuck ups, but is that in the benefit of society and the state and the nation? In a way, these people need to be like dragged by the legs to glory, whether they like it or not. Otherwise, you're just going to have this permanent stain on your society, which if you lift them up, then the lowest common denominator becomes actually higher and the standards overall improve. At least that's my romanticized take.
Like for instance, you talk about like a mother having 5 kids is happier than a CEO or whatever. That may or may not be true, but we would say a woman should be allowed to choose what she wants to do. Same thing with any man, right? If a man is born and he happens to be a little bit, more powerful than another man by the time he goes through puberty for whatever reason, we wouldn't tell that man, stop working on computers. You need to go to the mines and work because, you're a stronger man. We generally in liberal society let people make these decisions because that's just the thing we've decided to value. I guess we can go fundamental and try to argue on I guess more collectivist stuff versus like liberal stuff. But that seems to be the case that we made today. This idea that this idea that we've been like on this inevitable path towards destruction, solely due to liberalism, I don't know if that's necessarily true, right? You could argue that capitalism, for instance, is the result of a lot of these things. The fact that we prioritize profits and companies over anything related to happiness in society probably encourages a lot of people that aren't happy. The explosion of technological growth is something that also, has probably gone against a lot of people's happiness, people's obsessive use of like Facebook or other social medias that kind of, fuck with their heads and whatnot. Now, maybe in your society, you would argue that you have the ability to legislate against that harder. You would do something like make like social media illegal if it was contrary to a society or something. But I don't think that most people in at least liberal societies today would be okay with that. The idea that some essentially like a Catholic dictator or a theologian would kind of dictate to them, this is what you ought to do in society. You ought not be allowed to engage in this because it's against like the natural order or the natural role of what humans ought to do. I don't think most people would be very satisfied with that type of society.
Well, the trick really is.
Can I ask a question?
Sargon,
Please let Sargon go.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. It's kind of like, who else grew up with the advice from your elders? Just do what feels good. Do what makes you happy. But for a lot of people, what makes them happy is doing really nothing productive, playing games, smoking, drinking with friends, fucking around. That's what feels good, just to fuck around all the time. And then, 10 years pass, and you realize these fuckers lied to me. Or maybe they didn't lie to me. They were raised in a time where you could just fuck around, and then all of a sudden buy a house that's 10 grand, and then within 10 years it's worth 100 grand. But that reality is not to us. We fuck around, waste time. You're just behind the curve. What was that Pink Floyd song? It was like, you're waiting around for someone to shoot the starting gun, but the race has already begun. Something like that. That's life. Or my favorite one, Linkin Park. What's it go? Watch it fly by as the pendulum swings. Something along those lines.
So, do you think that there is any kind of social responsibility, Destiny?
To who and for what?
To the civilization that we've inherited, to the future of that civilization.
This is getting real financial. So I would argue that you have some responsibility to participate in society in a way that's not detrimental to other people. But I mean, as long as you're not necessarily hurting other people, then I think that for the most part, your rights should be respected to do what you want.
But what if this actually leads to the end of the society? Is there any moral?
What do you mean by end of society? Like humans go extinct, or like we lose a war?
I mean,
or
not humans.
Sargon's almost making a point that Jonathan Bowden said in one of the speeches I uploaded, where people need to understand that we're born into society which we've inherited. It's been passed down to generation. Now it's ours. And it's up to us to pass it down to the next generation. Almost feels like we've been brought into society today where, yeah, you're born, this is the world. If it ends tomorrow, who fucking cares? That's almost the mentality we have. It's like, and that's why you hear people been like, oh, the whites will be a minority. And you hear people like, who cares? Stuff like that used to make me angry. But again, these are people who are part of the 80%, 85%. We only need to convince the 15%, because the bottom 80 do not matter. It's not as if they're like, doesn't really matter what they say, what they do. No, it's completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant.
But like that society in particular. I guess at some point we're going to talk about birth rates. So let's assume that women just decide they're not going to have children.
I mean, I think that's a rough one, but I think I would be more okay with that.
That's a rough one because it really questions my ideology, because what he said was totally factual, and my gay outlook on the world doesn't have a way to combat it.
Than saying that like you're going to become the birthers and now you need to have children. I mean, it's interesting, like Nick posits this idea that people have these natural roles that they want to fill, but in the World War II era, it was attempted in several countries to incentivize people to have more children. People offered these massive payouts to people with more children. There were penalties if you didn't have enough, and it just doesn't work. Like if given the opportunity,
that's not true. It does work. In Denmark, they did just an ad campaign where they just encouraged people, look, Denmark's birth rates are going down, have kids, and there was like a 5% spike in the first year. It does work. It's all about what you, I know that this is persuade people is important.
5% is negligible, though, I'm afraid.
Civilization is a good thing. Then how is continuing that civilization not also a good thing? How is it not a moral responsibility?
Well, that's a really heavy question on whether or not you have a moral responsibility to supersede an individual person's liberty in order to further the human race by forcing them to
I
have
didn't
children.
say it superseded your liberty. I'm saying it gives you a duty, an obligation.
Sure. Also,
even with Destiny's retarded interpretation of that question, he said it's like a difficult question, you know, superseding somebody's liberty or civilization ends. It's like, shouldn't that be the obvious ones? Like, yes, it should be superseded. Otherwise, civilization ends. And he's like going, that's an interesting moral dilemma. Like, no, you fucking retard. It's like, it's either you get to wear women's clothes because that's what you want to do, or the civilization ends. Or you preserve civilization, I mean. You know, it's kind of one or the other. It's pretty an easy option, isn't it? Oops.
Like, I know that there were several countries that tried to heavily incentivize people to have children, and it failed. It never worked.
Sure, but in Denmark recently, it did work. So
okay, Denmark's birth rates are still below replacement. It's 1.7 births per woman.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Okay,
but there was an increase. So I think that culturally we could just have a cultural norm that it is the right thing to do to get married and have children, right?
I mean, you could, but I mean, like, you're essentially saying that, like, culturally, we should push people to do things that dramatically alter the course of their lives that they might not necessarily choose on their own. And I'm really uncomfortable with that type of push, unless you can make
do that anyway.
Hopefully not to that extent. Or can you give me an example? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, culturally, we push people not to use certain naughty words. You know, we've got lots of cultural carrots and sticks.
Sargon knows all about that one, right?
Sure,
yeah,
but like,
exactly. I mean, I'm going to say the N-word.
Please do not say the N-word. I was so fucking nervous in the last stream that he's going to drop it. But then somebody told me that he actually dropped it in a different stream. I don't know if it was like a damage control stream or it's a stream after the fact. I don't know. Who did he say it to? Like, I thought he said it to Richard Spencer. Did he have another debate with Spencer and called him the N-word? Did it take 2 debates to kind of to like lash out in that way? Somebody, I just fucking eliminated. That was dog shit. Need to try that again.
I'm talking about in terms of like having like dramatic impacts on people's lives. Like, yeah, we push people not to like.
Can have a dramatic impact on your life.
Do you think that not using dirty words has the same impact on you as pushing somebody towards having a child?
Maybe. Who knows? But
okay, if you legitimately believe that, then I can't.
I think that we're talking about 2 different things, right?
Listen,
I mean, like, not letting people say the N-word is less substantial than forcing them into having a child. Like, I mean, can you disagree?
What does chat think about that? That dilemma. Let's listen to that one again. What do you think of this?
Do you think that not using dirty,
not letting people say the N-word is less substantial than forcing them into having a child? Like,
what do you make of that?
Okay, I mean,
no one is suggesting that anyone can be forced by cultural factors,
okay.
But there's definitely a cultural push in that direction, and I really do think that we are at the point where we have to start considering, is Western civilization worth continuing? Because I mean, we're getting to the point where it might not continue unless we actually make those decisions, and it is essentially in a way a kind of an excess of liberty that has done this. Technology has done this to us. It's actually freed us from all of the necessary bonds that we had in previous eras, because most people just weren't free enough to be able to choose a life without a family or without, having the various conditions thrust upon them by nature. So,
would you go back? Would you take back time and go back to an era where technological developments weren't at the place that it's at, and people weren't as economically stable, I guess, as they are on average in developed Western nations, in an effort to ensure that the birth rates are similar? Like, how much do you personally, Sargon, care about protecting like the Western race in a similar fashion to Nick? I just want to understand and distinguish your thoughts from his.
Okay, so I'm not really interested in answering that question, Hassan, because it's obviously loaded and pointless.
No. I don't think you agree with Nick. That's why.
What do you think of my gay hypothetical question?
I'm not really interested in like that, because it's never going to happen, right? But the thing that we can talk about, and this isn't a racial question, this is a civilizational question.
Ooh, one of the same, though.
I mean, like the idea that American civilization somehow excludes black people is ridiculous. They've been there from virtually day one. So it's
that's not a good point.
What?
Just because they've been there from day one. I'm pretty sure if you came over as a slave, you probably feel pretty excluded from society. Just the fact that you were there probably doesn't make you feel very included.
No, they had a place in society. It wasn't a good place, but they were so...
Okay, sure, but generally when somebody says something is
Yeah, that's true.
inclusive, they don't
That's
necessarily
pretty
mean just
true.
a place.
I never said
like if I
anything
bring a
was
friend to...
inclusive.
Well, you
I
said they
never
were
said
included.
inclusive.
I thought you said included. My bad.
Well,
Okay.
they were a part of it. No, but inclusive is a particular ideologically loaded word.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
means something to progressives. They were still a part of that society, and they had a particular role, and it wasn't a good role. And I completely agree, obviously, with the abolition of slavery and Jim Crow and all this sort of nonsense. But the point is, from the position we're at now, Western birth rates are actually declining quite rapidly, and it looks like that this could actually be a bad thing in the long run. I mean, so the question is our society worth continuing? And then it's like, okay, well, how do we continue as society? Well, we have to make the voluntary choice to have, about at least 2 or 3 children each. So is that worth us doing? Is it a good idea? Because if it is a good idea, if we do think that maybe the West actually figured morality out better than the rest of the world, we do have an obligation to keep that going, because otherwise we're going to get people who are not believers in Western values, who do not come from Western cultures, who are just...
That reminds me of the point Sam Hyde made about like AI, and he was just saying something along the lines of, when we're competing against other nations, other people, to create the first real artificial intelligence, he says, "Trust me, you want it to be a white guy. You don't want the Chinese making the first proper true AI. It would be pretty devastating, I imagine."
Just simply going to exist longer than we will, and will basically forget about us when we're gone.
I'm super curious. Where does that obligation to continue society come from?
Our moral judgment that our society is a good society.
Where do those moral judgments come from? Because if we're going to make this argument,
This is the difficulty Sargon has for not having... I think he's like a staunch atheist at this point. So this is a question that can never really be answered. And Destiny does actually have a point here. Because if Sargon's trying to draw a moral framework, while Destiny is also like a staunch atheist, because he's using the same parameters as Sargon. Well, Sargon's trying to talk about something that is quite metaphysical, but his metaphysics can't be cemented in anything that is actually divine. Therefore, his metaphysics are just based on, did you read John Locke? John Locke is amazing. And Destiny could just be like, yeah, I think it's gay, and then move on from that. While someone like Nick, whether you're religious or Christian or not, he has an actual moral foundation, as opposed to just making it up as you go along. So Destiny's questioning here, as much as I hate to admit, kind of like puts it should make Sargon really question, as opposed Sargon's just kind of on the back foot now, I think. Let's listen to how it plays out.
we got to go real foundational here.
We our own moral perspectives.
So if let's say that you have a family, and this family, I say family, a husband and wife, okay? These 2 people want to be programmers. You think that you have the moral authority to tell them, no, you are going to have children because you have to, because we have an obligation to continue Western society.
That's
Or
a false dichotomy.
Well, okay. Let me soften that a little. Let's say that you think that you have a society full of people that could better allocate themselves into jobs where they would be personally happier. Do you think that you have the moral authority to push so much kind of cultural norms to these people that some of them decide to have children instead?
I think that we can have people who procreate and work at the same time.
Well, yeah, but it seems like given the option to choose to have children, people seem not to if they have the ability not to. That seems to be, for all that Nick talks about, like natural choices, that seems to be naturally what happens. If you look at countries as they become more first...
That doesn't make any sense. The natural choice is the majority of people don't have children, which then makes you question, well, how does civilization exist as it is today? If the majority of people didn't want to have kids, then we would not be alive, because, people would have gave up thousands of years ago. I think, the prospect of having to work and raise kids just makes people choose one over the other, because you can't really survive by having a kid. Unless, I always feel like in society these days, you have a few different classes. One class of people just pops out kids one after the other, and everything's paid for, and essentially that is their existence. But as soon as you have like a job and a house to pay for, then the prospect of having children is just beyond what you can afford. And so people then just simply choose not to have them, or at least until a lot later on. And it's just adding another symptom to the low birth rates.
It's absolutely artificial. Feel like that's an outcome of the current economic climate? Like,
No,
it's
I
not
think
just-
no.
it's-
This is like a very well observed phenomenon. As countries enter first world status, people just
Yeah.
have less children. They don't need to
Yeah,
have as
that's
many
not
children to
natural.
Not
populate.
except for
them.
Israel. Except for Israel. Israel's birth rate's going up, but never mind that they're a Silicon Valley.
okay,
That's
hold
all
on,
right.
hold on.
I know
It's
this
all
is-
One at a
this is
time.
why
For
we need to-
one second, we did not
Please.
focus on fucking Jewish people. I know it's real
Yeah,
hard for you,
okay,
Nick,
I-
but let's
okay,
keep
okay,
it.
hold on.
Oh,
One at a
yeah.
time,
Throw a little
please.
wrench in there.
No,
One
I'm
at a time.
with you.
Before,
Destiny.
before we get fully into foundational philosophy, I just want to, I really want to understand what you mean when you talk about Western civilization. Can you point to a specific example that does not include other cultures and other civilizations and other technological achievements created in like the Islamic culture, for example, in the golden age of Islam, that the Western civilization has backed on, that has built itself upon? I mean,
Hassan, I'm not saying that Western civilization has not been influenced by other civilizations.
The golden age of Islam is such a fucking cope as well. I mean, there's like, it's not as if they invented algebra. It was like an evolution from the mathematics that already existed. And there was literally a period of time that lasted. How long did the quote unquote golden age last? Like a few hundred years, until everything that they quote unquote invented was then outlawed by the same religion that apparently invented it, and they've been in the fucking Stone Age ever since. So it's a huge fucking cope when people say that.
it's not just influence. I mean, this is how it works. Like, we've always had globalism. Like, we've always had globalization. We've always, as a consequence
I
of
agree.
trade,
People have
wars-
always talked to each other and traded
What?
with one another and fought with one another. I agree.
Yeah.
Humans move. Yes, I agree.
Can we-
Okay.
real
So when you
quick,
talk about the
Let
preservation
me
of Western
interject, yo,
civilization,
Hassan. Hold that thought 1 second.
and you talk
Hassan,
about birth rates, what?
let me interject real quick.
Fucking
On
retard.
Hassan, please continue. Let's wrap this up and get to the next topic. I think we've really went off on a tangent here.
Dude, I've been able to finish
not
zero
you,
point.
not you. I'm referring to everyone else, not just you. You continue,
Okay.
finish your point.
I know your chat like spamming fucking Pepega and shit when I'm talking, but holy fuck, let me just like get one thing out.
I will put
Go.
in. There you go.
Okay.
Continue.
Mad?
All right.
Relax,
more
guys.
importantly, the thing that I'm trying to understand. Look,
Oh,
like
he's been given the floor. Everyone's silent. There's fucking crickets and tumbleweed. It has been silent. He's been begging for it, and his mind is just shat the bed. It's happened to me before, but he should be good at this, right? He should be a lot better than this. Oh, I'm fucking winning this race here again. Come on. There we go.
why are we trying to preserve civilization or Western civilization, or why are we trying to make sure that like mankind continues an interesting conversation? I guess maybe it's not to me. What I'm specifically trying to understand.
What the fuck? Why is preserving Western civilization a good thing? That's not a conversation I like to have. Again, the bar is so low to be a content creator. The bar is so low.
Understand right now is that why we're talking about birth rates without talking about the actual factors that contribute to birth rates declining. We know that it's technological achievements is one of them, socioeconomic status is one of them, and we see this with like immigrant cultures that are also coming in, or immigrants that are coming into like American society and integrating into American society, and by the third generation completely adapting and their birth rates adjusting to the existing like ethnic groups that are already living in America or in Western civilization in general. This is consistent across time, and it's consistent in all of these other countries. So when we talk about like the
Look at Nick's face here. He's just like, what is this fucking retard talking about? He's watching something else. He's probably watching SpongeBob because it's a lot more enthralling than what's coming out of Hassan's mouth right now.
declining of the birth rates, it's not a matter of like other people are coming in and replacing the original like ethnicity of that country. It's more so that people are actually fucking less, quite frankly, because they have more access to technology and they're wealthier and they get they use condoms and shit. So
Sure,
what do you
but
want to
I
do?
mean-
How do you want to reverse that
okay, Hassan,
if you want to
hang on a
actually
second,
reverse
hang-
that?
Hang on. Right, I don't really care about the ethnicity. It's not really the question, right? Because what you've identified correctly is that this is a malaise that is going
You
to
don't care about the ethnicity?
eventually, when all nations will eventually reach a sort of level of technological expertise and wealth where the question of is really, do we have a responsibility to what we've inherited to pass that down to someone, or are we allowed to be selfish enough to be the end point of that?
Tumbleweed.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Are we going to move on to the next topic?
I think that, I mean, unless Destiny or
Yeah,
Hassan has anything to add, like,
Yep.
let's just go ahead and go to the next question.
Holy fuck, this car's
I
fast.
The summary of my point, like, fuck, Nick said so many dumb things that I didn't get to respond to. The idea that, like, that earlier statement, this is like a really common thing about, like, do we really want to send our wives and daughters off to die in war? I mean, do we want to send our husbands and sons off to die in war? Like, nobody wants to go die in war. Like, that's a really dumb point, I think.
That's not true. I think there are people who absolutely are fine with dying in war.
Well, wait. Yeah, in America, they already make those decisions, though, by joining the military.
Women are more delicate. Could you imagine if an intruder broke into your home and you sent your wife down there with a baseball bat or a handgun?
I mean, if I was married to, like, Ronda Rousey, she'd have a much better time against them than I would. So, I mean, it depends on who it is.
Good God, man.
That's
Good
true.
God.
Who would win in a fight, Destiny or Nick Fuentes? Who do you think, if they had 6 months training, who do you think would actually kind of come out on top in that? Because they're both similar height, both kind of small. Hard to say. Nick's a younger guy. Nick's maybe a bit more agile. Destiny, he's got years and years of drug abuse in him. So I think maybe Nick would be able to kind of, you know, if he properly grafted, I think Nick could take him. Fuentes. Yeah, I think so.
Stating facts here, man.
Yeah,
I mean, looking at you, I'm not talking shit, but we're both pretty
No,
fucking
you're
small people. There's a decent chance that whichever women you and me wind up with would probably be more equipped to defend their houses than we would be. Okay, so
Yeah, we're going to refer to Ronda Rousey. I know most women and the average women are Ronda Rousey. You know,
the average woman is probably around your same size still, Nick, and probably maybe a little bit bigger. So I wouldn't be talking this much shit, okay?
Me right now, Hassan? I don't think it's going to fly with your audience, my friend. You really want to go there?
I don't give a fuck about my audience. I think my audience is probably fantasizing about other stuff than that.
Wow. I don't know, man. I don't know. I look Shank's nephew, but this stuff really doesn't fly with a young
good one, Nick. Good one, Booger Nick.
Calm down. Oh my
That's what it's descended into.
Okay, calm down.
Before we ran into the fucking ad homs.
Let's go to the
Let's skip ahead.
Sure. I wouldn't like but again, like I would make that decision based on kind of like the individual situation, right? And the way that a liberal would. Now, I wouldn't like hardcore. I wouldn't look to like naturalism or open a Bible passage to tell me who ought to be defending our property. In general, I don't think that I want a society where my decisions are hardcore relegated to me from a top-down approach, whether that's a governmental system or a theocratic system or some other like moral arbiter or moral police, I guess, telling me what I ought to do. I think that generally in a liberal society, I'm going to be allowed to make those decisions, and I think other people should be allowed to make those decisions. And if you want to make,
Can I respond to that? Because that's honestly, these are really great points, and I wish we had more time to dwell on them. But the thing is, society itself is kind of the moral arbiter. There isn't really any independent moral decision-making, really, in society. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're constrained by that whether you like it or not.
But we're talking about how we perform that society, right?
Yeah, but again, it really does come down to the sort of, should we be able to just end society? Is that a responsible thing to do? Well, because it seems to have been a good thing that we were handed to us.
Yeah, but if society would have ended before us, then we would have never even been here to not have had it. So
yeah, we're all just
I know, that's the thing. They have a responsibility that they
all just heckin' Stardust guys.
And you've got kids, haven't you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I have a responsibility to my son, but I don't know if I have a responsibility.
What's the lore on Destiny's son? Like, I saw like post that he like disowned Destiny, and like, it's became like a Nick Fuentes fan. Anyone know? I mean, this is pretty like. I mean, I know some of you guys are unemployed like me right now, but is anyone that unemployed that you know the situation between Destiny and his kid? Because I heard it's pretty fucked up.
To like my great grandkids to make sure society still exists. If that means making my own life.
Well,
miserable.
Obviously you won't have that option. That's not something you can do.
Well, but that's kind of what you're talking about right now, right? Should we enact policies in society to encourage people to continue?
No, I don't know. I'm not talking about policies at all, because I'm completely with you on the sort of the big state argument regarding this.
Sure.
But the question really is about what we as a society do. Like Hassan earlier said, you know, I think that women should have like a full role in society. It's like, Hassan, women dominate society and always have done since the dawn of time. They
that's another point.
So it's like this.
Well, how much do you think political?
That was almost a good point. I thought he was going to say they dominate society, but they say they always have. I mean, I know they have. I don't think that's true. I think it's definitely not true. Maybe today you could say it's true, like a largely feminized society. But always true? What's he trying to say? That doesn't make any sense to me.
How much do you think political voice matters?
The son's a
It
groiper.
depends on what you're talking
Fucking
about, doesn't
based.
it? Society
the
is
right
something
to
that
vote, for
happens
example. Do
separately
you think
from the
that's an
state.
important, the right to vote or the right to actually earn your own?
Not society. That's not society. That's politics. That's the state itself. You're not talking about society. Society is like, women taking the kids to a crash or something. Some kind of, any clubs or anything like this. Social groups that people live in. Women dominate them, man. Honestly, at this point, it's men who we have to start worrying about actually being engaged in society, because men are the ones checking out and just getting minimum wage jobs, drinking beer, playing Xbox, and living with each other well into their 30s. Like yourself, probably. In fact,
Hey,
Based.
It's you're the one
Based
who's not
checking
going
out
out and
society.
engaging in society, are you? What clubs do you go to? Like, what are you part of a bowling club or something? And even this is genuinely a problem. And usually, yeah, the government was the purview of men, because, hell, honestly,
I think honestly for men, the only clubs you can realistically join that are actually beneficial for you in more ways than just a social thing is probably like a martial arts club. I would say that's probably the most S tier sort of club. Trying to think what else is good. The gym, I guess, the gym, you could do that together. S tier would be martial arts and gym. Is there anything else that's actually, that guys can do together that isn't like a waste of time or gay? I know sort of like, dioramas and Warhammer and trains. I know that's kind of like looked down upon, just a huge waste of time. But I think guys just get into that just to stay away from their wives, really. Sports in general. Yeah, sports in general, I would say. I would put sports mid, maybe A tier, while martial arts would be S tier, just because because it's like you grow with like martial arts in many, many ways. I'm doing fucking terrible in this race. We have to restart. Get ahead of myself with the bullshit point here.
It was a way of getting them to do something, because they become wasteful and destructive if they don't. But
women's participation in other marginalized communities' participation in society greatly predicated on how much political power they had that gave them access to even join these sorts of clubs to begin with. Unless you assume that women's role in society is just to be the caretaker, and that they're going to be comfortable doing that, you have to realize that political action in this respect is incredibly important for women. And then they were able to achieve that only recently. So obviously they didn't have that same kind of
politics. We're talking about society, social groups, things that are outside of the state.
Okay, did you not hear the first part of what I just said?
Sorry,
women were also excluded from participating in certain activities. Without political power, they were not able to actually go out and open these environments so that they could also participate in them, including the workforce. So
can you give me an example?
It's unfortunately a slow.
I got a big issue with the clubs that guys would have joined. That's just, I don't know why Hassan maybe remind me of this, where a lot of clubs that were for guys have had to be opened up to include women as well. So what would have been a club for you and your pals, for guys, just to kind of like get away from everything, they've been forced to involve women. I would say golf clubs is probably the big one. But you're not forced to play women, but still. Boy Scouts as well. You have to let girls into that. What else? There's something else in my mind there for like clubs. Again, how they change. They're not changing a bunch of like Warhammer stuff just to make it a lot more woke and a lot more quote unquote women friendly and stuff. There's that classic meme where it's like there's the niche kind of like hobby that autistic guys create and love. Then more people join, and then it becomes mainstream, and then it becomes a demonic inversion of itself, and the people who originally loved it have nowhere else to go because the thing they once loved is now garbage.
And really draining process. But historically, what you're saying is untrue unless you assume that women's only participation in society is child rearing and taking care of children and sitting at home.
I don't think you understand what I mean when I say society. The collective action of groups of people is society, right? And each individual is a member of usually several different groups. It's for several different reasons at different points in their lives. And women have always been the driving force of this. Because men, as you say, men were the ones who were generally involved in politics, which is something different. Now women are also involved in politics, and frankly, society is declining. You know, the actual sort of
That's a great
health
way
the
of letting up.
society. Like, think about like in was it World War One or Two, where they went around giving out white roses and stuff like this. You know, that's not going to happen now. No one's gonna. There's not going to be any kind of social pressure. All the social pressure was always driven by women, and that's not a bad thing or anything like that. It's actually a very good thing. But these are
Yeah, the social pressure driven by women, that's the sort of Karen archetype that everyone likes to poke fun of. But that kind of archetype of like maintaining that kind of like order in a way, you know, it kind of maintains standards in a way if you think about it. You know, these Karens always complaining. Yeah, there's like psychos, they need to be fucking, you know, slapped about a little bit just to kind of shut up. But the kind of mentality of, you know, this isn't right, I need to complain. That kind of like maintains a high standard in many, many ways that we don't really think about in a lot of times. Women police, yeah, I mean, that's just too far.
These are
I mean, one of my older videos is about women police, and it's just like it's exactly what you think.
aspects of civilization that are kind of falling away now. And the question is, where was it a good thing that we had them? But I mean, I'm happy to move on to the next.
Okay,
topic.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump.
Well, no.
How about that?
Let's see. Since Sargon and Nick started the topic, let's allow Destiny and Hassan to. Is there anything else?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, if you guys want to have any closing statements,
if you have any closing statements,
Destiny,
please go ahead, and then we'll move to the next topic.
Boring.
Right.
Just
I
skip
should've-
to the next topic.
Evidence of any collusion. There wasn't enough lawyers retained as the election.
Oh, election collusion, Russia collusion. Is that going to be any interesting? We can maybe listen to a little bit of that because it's funny when you look back on, because that was hot off the press. Russia collusion was just always in my feed, and now it's just completely ignored as if nothing ever happened to begin with. So maybe let's listen a bit of this. And we've got a timestamp when they get beyond this.
In their favor. Despite an unprecedented level of access to any political campaign, $30 million spent, 500 witnesses interviewed, 19 lawyers retained as a special counsel, 40 dedicated FBI staff anchored to the investigation, and 500 search warrants executed, it found zero evidence of any collusion. There wasn't enough to charge even a low-level volunteer with any form of tampering or improper electoral conduct related to Russia. Given how many news networks have reported, inaccurately, that Russian collusion had occurred and that the proof of collusion would be forthcoming, does this outcome not validate Trump's claims about media bias against its administration?
Well, I think that last time we let Sargon and Nick go first, so Destiny or Hassan, whichever one of you two wants to start that off, go ahead. Let's go.
You want to go first,
was,
Destiny?
yeah, if you want to go for it.
Well, it's a two-part discussion, right? The first part obviously is about Trump and the Mueller report, and the second part is more about how Trump was talking about fake news and the role that fake news had played in the Mueller report and the whole investigation.
I mean, I have my own personal perspective on this, but I think Destiny and I might disagree on it a little bit. I just want to hear his side first, and let him describe, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, so firstly, the Mueller report in itself hasn't been made available to the public yet. I don't remember if the House committee got it yet or not. I don't know where they're at on that status, but supposedly they're going through some redactions for the full report to get released to the public, I think, as long as McConnell or whatever doesn't stop that from happening. That being said, this idea that there was...
You mean Mitch McConnell? Is that guy still alive? Every time I see a clip of Mitch McConnell, he's like doing that death stare where he stares like 1,000, you know, he's staring through the camera. And he like collapses or hits the deck. Has he not like fell over a few times? That guy's like made out of wax. They just like wheel him out like some sort of humiliation ritual. I don't know why. He's probably more fucked than Biden.
Was no proof of... Well, okay. Oh, fuck, there are a million different ways to go with this. The idea that there was like no proof of collusion or any of that, that's not necessarily true. I think that what the Attorney General's summary, what Barr's summary of the Mueller report was, is that there wasn't enough to like maybe actually press charges. There's like a million different ways that can be read. We don't 100% know until we actually have the report, you know, itself. So the idea that you can already say, well, the media was reporting things that was incorrect isn't necessarily true, because those things might actually be borne out in the Mueller report. However, maybe Mueller didn't feel like there was enough here to like 100% nail anybody to the wall on conspiracy against the United States.
He's fucking pillars,
yeah.
man. Honestly,
the only thing that we can speculate here is, look, Attorney General Barr was appointed to this position specifically because he said that the bar to prove collusion is going to be incredibly high. And even beyond that, most importantly, obstruction of justice, even if it's proven, does not matter if that bar for collusion can be passed. So we already know that obstruction of justice occurred. So this is more so a matter of, was there collusion?
How do we know that?
We already know that obstruction of justice occurred because Trump went on national television and in front of millions of people on Lester Holt's channel said, I stopped James Comey. I stopped the investigation because he was searching, because he was looking into the Russia investigation. Now, I myself,
wasn't James Comey a fucking snake anyways?
Who have a different perspective, thought that the Russia collusion narrative was a little self-serving. I talked about it quite frequently here on Twitch. I talked about it in my coverage as well. Originally, I thought it was very sketchy, and I do think that it was a good investigation to conduct, absolutely, given the fact that Russia had conclusively tried to meddle in our elections. And beyond that, Trump had asked Russia to, on national television, hack into the DNC, which did happen. So obviously, that I think is enough for anyone to set up this sort of investigation. I don't think people were actually against it at the time. What happened, however, is that they focused too much on the collusion aspect of it. And the reason why they focused too much on the collusion aspect of it, I think, especially on the liberal side, is because they wanted to justify why the hive mother Hillary Clinton lost to a demented dipshit man-child like Donald Trump. So they continuously push this narrative, and they, in some respects, similar to the fucking QAnon crowd on the right,
I miss Q,
and started attributing everything, including.
Guys, who else misses QAnon? I loved that shit. I loved the whole kind of like schizo boomer. There's like a new secret message. There's new stuff. Guys, the shadow government's in control. The real patriots are in charge. I fucking loved all that stuff. That was so funny. But now the schizo boomers have nothing to complain about other than like chemtrails and the weather. That seems to be all that they seem to talk about is the, like weather manipulation. That seems to be a bit, a way for QAnon to kind of maintain some sort of schizo stuff. Now that I'm sure there's a few Q-tards out there, but at this point it's just sad.
Including even people like myself who are further to the left than the average Democrat, as Kremlin agents who were causing problems. The real issues in America are deeply ingrained in American body politic. So like when Russia can easily, by spending $1 million in ad spend, change the outcome of a fucking election, then maybe we have to stop that conversation on whether or not Hillary Clinton lost because Russia was helping Donald Trump, or and take a good hard look at how American politics is conducted and what our problems are as far as white supremacy, racism, as far as economic inequality, and all of these things that Russia could easily trigger like some sort of outrage over with a couple dollars spent in the right direction on the internet, which I don't even know if this is illegal or not.
Yeah, can I clarify one thing? Is that you did say that Donald Trump was involved in obstruction of justice. Was he ever charged on that, or is that your evaluation?
My evaluation, but beyond that,
Okay.
My evaluation. Now, on top of that, however, the reason why
election budgets are tens of billions. Yeah, exactly. So when they talk about $30 million, I mean, of foreign interference, I mean, what other foreign governments try to interfere in elections, especially the United States? You can have interference from the Israelis, the Chinese, the Saudi Arabians. Everyone wants a piece of it, So the fact that the Russians did it, that's just to be expected. If anything, I would be surprised if the Russians didn't try to interfere the election in some way.
We know for a fact that there was nothing, Attorney General Barr did not indict anyone on the report, is because the bar was set incredibly high, and it didn't matter if there was obstruction of justice or not.
Well, and to be clear, I think Barr said that Barr's very narrow interpretation that I don't think most legal scholars agree with is that obstruction of justice can't occur if the crime itself didn't occur. So, for instance, what Barr is saying is that if collusion, or more specifically, if conspiracy against the United States can't be proved, then there's no way he could have obstructed justice against it, which a lot of people take issue with that. Yeah.
Which is, in my personal perspective on this, beyond everything else that we've talked about and beyond like other people's coverage and like liberals' coverage, is that 100% we should continuously push for transparency, see the entire report. But I think every single person who is even remotely sane understands that Donald Trump is not only most likely a criminal, but also a really bad one at that, and constantly fucking stumbles and fucks shit up. And the fact that they just like narrowly focused and tried to cover their own asses, both the media apparatus and also the DNC tried to cover their own asses by promoting this message.
Donald Trump's a criminal and a bad one at that. I mean, listen to this guy. It's just, even though there's elements of what he's saying is true, it just comes across as just difficult to listen to. I'm very sorry I'm subjecting you guys and listening to this. The last one was Sargon 2017. That was the kind of like lefty guy we had to suffer through. Now we have to actually suffer through real beacons of the decline. So maybe I should have thought about that. But it is what it is. We have to listen to this sometimes to fully understand what's going on. So this is all research. This is all important stuff.
That like only we should be looking at like Russian involvement in the election was really counterproductive, and that's probably why we fell. That's probably why the Democrats, at least, looked terrible.
And both of you do agree that the Mueller report should be released to the public in its entirety, right?
Oh yeah,
I have a hard one with that. I don't know.
Really? Okay.
My worry is that my worry is that what's going to happen. I'm just looking at it from an optics, pragmatic point of view.
Okay.
Is that there are a lot of Democrats that are very fucking desperate to pin the Russia shit on Trump. And if the report ends up getting released, they're going to find like one or two lines in there, and they're going to make it all about that, and they're going to throw the 2020 election away because they obsess over a couple of things in the Mueller report.
Did the Mueller report get released? What was the actual conclusion of that? Did anything actually happen? Obviously, I know the answer. Nothing happened. But was it released and then that was it? Because I forget how that story went. Considering I've forgotten what happened, nothing happened. That's the only conclusion I can draw.
That they probably should let go. I mean, like overall, it should probably be released. I just hope that Democrats don't go full fucking moron with it or whatever. Yeah.
Pragmatic argument, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Sargon, you're not in the U.S. From an outsider perspective. Where are you coming from?
I actually think Hassan gave a pretty lucid account of the problems in the Democratic Party. I mean, Trump didn't need Russia to be able to win the election. That's just the be-all and end-all of it. There are deep societal issues and governmental issues in the United States that just haven't been addressed for a long time. And I think that the way that the media effectively drives the discourse in America is part of that problem. And I think that it took a giant orange dick to be able to break through that. And that's what's happened. What was the other thing I was saying? The interesting thing, I've spoken to people who were in the White House with Donald Trump, and I read the book Fire and Fury, and the conclusion that I've come away from with that is that they simply are not going to be competent enough to have colluded with Russia. I think this requires a level of expertise that the Trump campaign, frankly, wasn't in possession of.
I agree.
Right.
Wait, you can agree, but you're both wrong on that. Manafort literally has conspired with foreign agents in the past. That's literally what he was indicted and charged with. How can you agree with that?
No, I'm talking about.
It was Donald Trump's campaign manager while he ran for president,
Sure,
so it would have been involved with him, right?
That was always the dichotomy of the leftist view of Trump. One side, he's the biggest moron ever, retarded, can't count, doesn't know anything. And then at the same time, he's also a maniacal conspirator, evil genius that wants to kind of, turn the United States into some sort of fascist state through XYZ, through some sort of like manipulation. So it's which one is it? The evil retard or the evil genius? And they would flip-flop between each one, depending on which, how it would suit them in the argument at the time.
Okay, that's precisely why I think that the Russia investigation was worthwhile, because Paul Manafort had worked with other Russian oligarchs, which I reported on back in August 2016. Like, this wasn't.
I'm just saying it's possible that somebody around Trump could have gotten him to do it.
I'm not saying it's impossible. But I don't think it was something they were really capable of and keeping secret. Then maybe I should say. And I think that I mean, it's a total waste of time. It's a red herring because Trump's base doesn't care. The 2.5 year investigation has come to an end. No further indictments, no further investigation. Okay, it's a dead issue, and I think the left is absolutely foolish for pursuing it. But you got idiots like Rachel Maddow who's going to double down and destroy themselves trying to pin something on Trump that, like you say, Destiny.
So you actually agree with Destiny on this?
Oh, I think their analysis is generally quite correct. I think they're right on what they're saying. I think it's not really something that's worth pursuing.
I like that my perspective changed after the report came out, where I originally was like, "Oh, we shouldn't pursue this," but I think as a political move, we absolutely should. The Democrats should absolutely fucking continue to push this. Not the narrative that like there's collusion, but the narrative that crimes had been committed. We know the campaign finance violations that were pretty flagrant. We need to investigate those. I think that the fact that we would just like throw out this 2-year-long investigation.
I'm going to jump to the loo before this next race, but I'll keep this playing.
After the Republicans openly admitted that they utilized and weaponized the Benghazi investigation.
Hang on a second.
Let me finish my point. Even none of you know American politics as well as I do, unfortunately.
Before we get to the rebuttals, can we please hear Nick's perspective? Yes.
Benghazi was weaponized.
Okay.
As well.
All right, Nick, go ahead.
Sargon, go ahead and finish. Yes, Sargon, go ahead and finish, and then give it to Nick directly. Just finish your point.
So basically, I think it was essentially a red herring all along, and it's if the Democrats don't let it go, they're going to destroy themselves on it. But yeah, carry on.
Okay, go ahead, Nick.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll look at the size and the scope of the Mueller investigation. I think Trainwrecks read it off from the beginning. It was 2 years, millions of dollars. The exact figures disputed, and actually, nobody has pointed out. Actually, everybody has failed to mention the fact that there were indictments delivered in the course of the investigation. Many indictments against Russians, indictments against Americans. And we find that the indictments against all the Russians.
Sorry to jump in. I don't.
Can I just get a point out? You can get it out. Can I just finish?
I think that was an inaccuracy. That's all.
What is an inaccuracy?
Were there any Americans indicted?
Yes.
6 people. I think.
Yes, many were indicted. Except, however, the Russians were indicted separately from everybody else. They were indicted for trying to meddle in the election. That's something Destiny and Hassan got right, that the Russians did attempt to meddle. It wasn't tied directly to the Russian state, but they did find Russians who were buying Facebook ads. I believe it was 2 companies and 13 individuals. And they also found that it was something like 6 American individuals, people like Manafort, Papadopoulos, a number of others, were indicted as part of the investigation. Every single indictment that was brought down, even against low-level people, all the indictments had nothing to do with collusion. It was either lying to the FBI, which is something that everybody knows. If there's an inconsistency, if you don't place something exactly right, they can get you with that. So it's not difficult for somebody to get you for lying to the FBI. Or in the case of Manafort, what they did is they dug up financial crimes from 2013. And if you know the story on that, what happened was he had done some kind of weird, shady business deal with the Ukrainians. This was back many years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago.
Weird, shady business deal with Ukrainians? I wonder if that's going to lead into anything in the near future. Who knows? There's quite a few other kind of shady deals with the Ukrainians, like was it not a Hunter Biden, Joe Biden as well? Quite a lot of people with lots of kind of big companies as a means to kind of launder money through as well. So yeah, I think the Ukrainian situation was actually something they saw as a positive, because it means they could just launder even more money. Like all those aid packages going to Ukraine, it was just a way to kind of give money as a means to recycle the money back to various kind of super PACs or something like that. I forget exactly how it laid out, but it was just a funnel for money.
So, you had people looking into that in the government, looking into that financial crime. This is well before Trump even announced or anything like that. They shelved it. And then when the Mueller investigation happened, they came back to those previous financial crimes, and that's how he got charged. So to me, and somebody said this earlier, Trump's base doesn't even care. That's totally correct. I mean, we're going to talk about foreign meddling in elections, and really the hill we're going to die on is like Russian Facebook ads or like a phone call in Trump Tower from the Russians. Has anybody heard of AIPAC? Has anybody heard of, anything other countries are doing? Qatar, Saudi Arabia. I mean, everybody meddles in our elections. So I'll say that. But if we are going to talk about specifically the Mueller investigation, I just don't think you can look at the size, the scope, the indictments, the media pressure, everything that was going on, all the access that was given, and come away with that and say, oh, they just didn't find it. They just didn't have enough time. I mean, Mueller had all the time in the world, and they were covering that every night on MSNBC and CNN, talking about Sergei Kislyak and Jeff Sessions, even though Sessions was the chief of the Foreign Policy Subcommittee in the Senate. So I just think it's totally ridiculous. But even if it did happen, wouldn't care. Frankly, I don't think it was. I don't think it was that big of a deal, even if it happened.
Well, how do you think the media's role in the reporting of this Mueller investigation affected them in any way, or affected Trump's presidency, or potentially his reelection?
Was obviously biased, and this is something that was talked about even before 2018. I just don't think it was fair, the fact that the media every night, and you look at media control, what is it, 95% of media is controlled by 6 conglomerates, so you're going up against...
I don't think Nick would say that. I think he would say 95% of it's controlled by something else, but maybe if you look into the conglomerates, you might be able to kind of narrow it down a bit more. Maybe he's just trying to be a bit more friendly on the debate.
One man against like 95% of legacy media, which is print, television, and radio, and just about all of them, with the exception of Fox News and Rush Limbaugh, are beating the same old drums about
almost
these meetings.
All radio leans very right. That's not true.
Radio is really a contemporary medium. Exactly.
You're the one that brought it up.
You brought it up.
The point was to demonstrate that you have a big scope here when we're talking about all these different media companies. So all of television, a lot of radio. Sure, you're right. You've got Rush Limbaugh. You've got a few others over there.
You've got Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Michael Savage, Billy Cunningham, Sean Hannity.
You're right. Rush Limbaugh.
Jesse,
you're right.
Didn't Rush Limbaugh get like a medal off for Trump? Is he still alive? I thought Rush Limbaugh had like cancer. Did he die? Is he still kicking about?
Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity are equivalent to ABC, NBC, CNN, MSNBC.
Well, hold on.
You're right.
Wait. I wouldn't make an equivalency between a radio. Those are the largest radio hosts in America. They're not the same as the cable news. If you want to talk about cable news, the largest media network in the United States is Fox News, which is conservative. So I mean, if you want to talk about media on TV,
you're right. You're right. All the networks, and that's only cable news, also, by the way. But you're also talking
we can run the goalposts as much as you want. I'm just making sure you get the facts right.
No. Because you said Fox News is the biggest one. You have the biggest cable news network, but you're not counting all of the others combined. And you're also not counting social media. You're not counting Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, where they're actively...
Oh, do you want to go on YouTube and see who the largest political commentators are? Because that's overwhelmingly right-leaning as well. This narrative, the conservative... Yeah.
Really? Who?
What do you mean? We've got Sargon of Akkad here. You've got Steven Crowder. You've got that Mark Dice guy. I mean, what do you mean? There's tons.
Those are not the biggest. The Young Turks, I'm pretty sure, is the biggest political lie.
That is the one largest one, sure. But earlier when I used
it's just the largest one. What are you talking about?
Wait, hold on. When I just got for Fox News...
The Young Turks has really fallen from grace. I wonder what their subscriber numbers are saying now. But they're a lot. I think they're a lot smaller than what they were. Or am I just in an echo chamber? Are they actually far, far bigger than what they were? I thought the Young Turks is just they kind of peaked in kind of 2013, 2014. Maybe up to the run of Trump as well. But just, you just never see... I mean, you see something's chink, kind of like rant, and that gets a few impressions on Twitter and stuff, but I just don't really see what they're up to these days. So too many defectors. Young Turks lost the momentum. Yeah, I mean, as well, if you think about it as well, I mean, these days, media on the internet, that can be uncensored, does skew right, because that's what people like to watch. I mean, if you go onto X now, I don't know about you guys feel, because I mean, to say I use 4chan, I used to kind of do a bit of doom scrolling on it back in probably up to maybe 2021. That's probably where I stopped. But I feel like X these days, X is like the new 4chan. Just some of the memes, the anons everywhere. It's just because 4chan these days, from my understanding, is just it's unusable. It's just like total. I mean, when I had the Murdoch AMA, I thought it would be, advertising in 4chan is not a good idea, but Murdoch is 4chan culture. So I thought I'll make a little thread. I'll say that the AMA is out. Everyone get involved, and it was just 3 people calling me Indian. One person called me a Jew. Somebody said it's like I'm a bot, and it was just then 2 of them were arguing with one another, and all it was me just trying to share the AMA, and it was just that's the last time I used 4chan, I must admit.
When I just said that for Fox News, you want to talk about the totality of all of the cable news? Sure, that's so when we talk about YouTube, now you're going to point to the one Young Turks network, but if I talk about the totality of conservative YouTube creators, now that's not a good argument.
Cable news. Yes, you do have to look at the whole picture.
Hey guys,
you actually run this one.
Can I just jump in here for a second?
Hassan.
Deliver some information here. I just want to clarify my position. I think the Russia investigation is largely frivolous. But I think the government conducts a lot of frivolous investigations and then weaponizes it politically. And I think if anyone would disagree with me on this perspective, either they weren't around during the election coverage, a couple years back, where they consistently talked about Benghazi and Hillary Clinton's emails as a consequence of the Benghazi investigation. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because Kevin McCarthy, the Senate House Majority Leader, openly admitted that they used the Benghazi investigation, which took a longer time than the JFK assassination and Watergate investigation combined, which took a longer time than the 9/11 investigation. They used that to weaponize it against Hillary Clinton, who already sucked, mind you.
I mean, the JFK 9/11 investigation didn't need to take that long because all they wanted to do was cover it up. So it was not in their interest to make it very, very long. But he is right in saying that, a lot of these investigations in the UK as well, I think there was in the Boris Johnson, the then Prime Minister, had like a party during COVID, and it was just the investigation. It was all led into, it was just used to be like a political, bread and circus for everyone just to be angry about. It's all these things are weaponized in a way where it's just to rile people up, to distract and confuse them, and just to get them angry about things that maybe rightfully should be angry about, but to be angry about it all the time, every day, it's just it's definitely an obfuscation there.
But they effectively use that and consistently talked about it, and they still do. I mean, Sean Hannity still fucking brings up Benghazi every now and then.
Yeah,
Donald
Benghazi
Trump still
happened.
brings it up. So for you to sit here and be like, oh, they spent all this money, when you and I both know that they took back way more money, they were able to seize more assets from Paul Manafort that would pay for the investigation and 10 times over, is really silly. I thought you didn't care about that sort of stuff as long as it fit your narrative, right?
Yeah, obviously you lack understanding. I didn't say that to say that it was such a high cost. I said it in order to demonstrate the scope and scale of the investigation.
Yeah,
in other words, there was no shortage. In other words, there was no shortage of resources. That was the intention. Not to say that I'm so mad that the government is spending money. The government spends money every day that we don't even know about. The point is to say.
Someone said we investigated ourselves and we found no fault. That reminded me of an investigation that should be happening in the UK, but it's not. It's a grooming gang report. The Labour government said they're going to do it. Said it's going to take another 3 years. Many victims of the grooming gangs have essentially withdrawn themselves from the investigation because they said this has been watered down. This is not going to actually get to the root of the problem. And obviously, that's obviously the point, because the Labour government at the time was complicit. Labour councillors, and was it police chiefs, police officers, police constables, people who ran community centres. It goes so deep. That's what people should be angry about. But that's why they don't release that report, because that gets people angry at the wrong people, and it's not going to do themselves any favours. So, if you want to be elected to the next government, I mean, the Labour government's not going to be elected anyways. They may as well just go full nuclear, just like fuck it, They may as well just dissolve themselves to reinvent themselves into a new party. There's no point trying to be who they are, because, well, it's not getting my vote. But then again, maybe I'm putting too much faith in the British public. The amount of people who voted Labour just because they didn't like the Conservative Party really goes to show that the actual thought process of the average voter is... trying to think of a metaphor here. It's not good. And it kind of goes to show, see swing states or swing voters. These are people who will just believe the next thing that's been told to them until somebody else says the opposite, and then they believe that. That's what a swing voter is, a retard.
Say that they had every resource at their disposal, and they were not able to come up with enough evidence to indict anybody, not even the president, anybody.
It's bullshit. I'm saying that we should use it politically.
What?
Just can I address Destiny's point about the YouTube right-wing bias? That's not true, Destiny. That we've got the numbers. The right gets 2.5 billion viewed recommendations a month. The center gets 2.5 billion, and the left gets 5.7 billion. It's heavily skewed.
How do you account
billion?
Well, how do you account for that
viewed
difference?
recommendations? Yeah, YouTube's huge.
Wait, viewed
I've
recommendations?
I've left a link in the description in the chat
Okay.
for you to have a look at afterwards.
Well, how do you account for the difference
Wait,
between
you
the two?
consider Jimmy Kimmel Live as left?
Okay.
Yes,
advances Obamacare
definitely
Looking at it
consider
right now,
Jimmy
it's like Jimmy Kimmel Live is a part of the left in this. I mean,
Okay,
But
here are
do
the
you-
here are
do you
the- so
think he
just these
doesn't
are
have a Democrat bias?
of people that aren't like mainstream media, so like John Oliver or whatever, of just people that are like YouTube personalities. Here's the top 10 list that I have for views in the last 30 days and millions of people. Okay, you have 1 and 2 are the Young Turks and Philip DeFranco. If you want to consider Philip DeFranco, I guess you could call him left. He's more centrist. Then
Philip DeFranco's still alive. He's someone who I never watched but was always aware of. Isn't he just a sort of like films himself, talks about the news? That's really it. Just sort of like goes over news. Kind of a centrist guy. Was he political? Again, he's someone who's in the back of my mind, but he's such a... It just seems so... He seems so uncontroversial that I have no opinion of him because I never watched him.
after that, you've got Steven Crowder, PragerU, InfoWars, Daily Wire, Mark Dice.
InfoWars?
Yeah, Secular Talk, which is...
InfoWars have been banned
Secular
from YouTube.
Talk is left.
Secular Talk is...
Secular Talk
Oh,
is
yeah,
left.
Secular Talk is left. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then Paul
InfoWars
Joseph
have been
Watson...
banned from YouTube. When was this data compiled?
This was compiled. This is what I have is 10 months old.
Okay.
And anyway,
InfoWars
you
is no
say
longer
without
with us.
John
Sure,
Oliver.
InfoWars might not be with us any longer, sure.
You say without John Oliver. How can you exclude John Oliver?
I said
Yeah.
Jimmy
Because
Kimmel. I
it's
was
all-
Because
laughing.
John
I don't know if
Oliver.
it's like the
No,
same. I don't
no,
know if it's the same as having like a mainstream like
This is
media
like-
network show
this
like on
is
YouTube.
different.
It's like-
He's
Definitely
comparing
something
What a
we're gonna
joke.
include.
No, it's completely different. He's comparing people that are originated and their content exists on YouTube primarily. John Oliver's content does not exist on YouTube primarily, and so he would be considered another component. Now, it doesn't mean that he doesn't count. It just means that he counts in a different way.
Yeah, I
think
understand
that's
that.
what
I
I'm
understand that. I understand the point being made, but only if you're looking at a very, very narrow definition. For example, if you say, if we look at cable news, correct. The
Yes.
biggest primetime shows are on Fox News. But if you're looking at all of news, and people watch not just cable news, and you add them all up, it's obviously greater than Fox News. And the same is true with YouTube. If you exclude Jimmy Kimmel, who talks about his son and why we need Obamacare and the individual mandate on a show, yeah, if you exclude Jimmy Kimmel and John Oliver and all the other big ones on YouTube, and you look at the top 10, yeah, the top 2 are left, and a few in the top 5 are left. But look at all these. I mean, only under very narrow definitions, qualifying it totally arbitrarily, can you in any way, shape, or form say that there's equality or a conservative advantage in media? Please, what
But it's
planet
not
are
really
we
fair.
living on?
Let's say, for instance, hold on. Let's say, for instance, all of Twitch was like right leaning. Okay, let's say for like a hypothetical. Let's say all of Twitch is right leaning, and then let's say that like for every now and then Obama comes on and gives like he's working for some charity thing, and they do like a political thing on Twitch, and that's like the only time they're the only thing related to that. He's not like a Twitch streamer or whatever. And in those times, let's say they get more views than anybody else on Twitch. I don't know if you would then say, well, Twitch has a fair representation of left versus right because sometimes Obama comes into it. That just doesn't seem to be. I mean, I guess we can argue over
I don't
methodology.
think it's
but-
organic.
You're obfuscating. You understand
I'm not
perfectly well
obfuscating,
what's
it's trying to get a
happening.
better
You
understanding
absolutely
of-
are. You know, this is always what you obfuscate. You say you come up with these totally convoluted hypotheticals. Everybody knows the media is left leaning. And by the way, John Oliver does not come on YouTube once in a while like Barack Obama. John Oliver posts every show on YouTube, and everyone knows that. And everyone
Yeah,
knows
but
he's
John
left
Oliver's
leaning.
fan base didn't come from YouTube. He's not part of the YouTube community.
Doesn't
Nobody
matter.
would
He
call
has
What
to
John
difference
Oliver a
does it make?
YouTuber.
You're
Right? He's got a
fixating
show on
these
HBO.
trivial little details. We're
Oh,
talking about
I'm
media.
sorry if the okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
You call it a
exactly, yeah.
trivial
Throw
little
up your
detail.
hands.
I mean,
I can no longer obfuscate what
unironically
everybody
open the
knows to be true.
conversation saying that talk radio is fucking left leaning, and now you're saying that I'm the one obfuscating the data.
I didn't say
mean,
talk
okay.
radio's left leaning.
Destiny is a cuck and his son hates him, opinion disregarded. I was just thinking that, honestly. See him talking there? The only benefit of Destiny talking very quickly is that if he was to talk slower, you would have to listen to him for longer. That's the way I'm thinking here, because God, his ear, my left ear is really starting to suffer.
Pretty sure you brought that up in part of your.
I said 95% of
I
media is
think
owned
that-
by six conglomerates, of which we're talking about
okay.
legacy
No, what
media.
you said,
Yeah,
what
that's
you
Nick,
said
running
Destiny.
down them
No,
goalposts.
You can
so
rewind the tape. It's not shifting the goalposts to
I
restate
remember what
was
was
said
said.
earlier.
Destiny said that obviously a lot of the right wing, a lot of the shows on radio are right wing, and then Nick responded by saying radio isn't relevant. That's what happened.
Radio is still tremendously relevant, especially.
And I
when
only
it
brought up
comes
radio
to a
because he
voter
said
block
it.
that's
That's
actively
what
voting.
Is radio relevant? Like one of my friends said when he drives his car, he puts on the radio, and I thought that was like the most insane thing I've ever heard. Do people actually put the radio on? Like I imagine if I tuned into the radio, it would just be advert, a kind of gay pop song, followed by some local news I don't care about.
That's what you guys said.
Yeah, but he brought up radio beforehand. That's why I brought it up. I wouldn't bring it up out of nowhere.
And
Well, I
Sinclair
personally would
Broadcasting
agree
is
with
another one. I mean, look, right wing commentary is prevalent on YouTube and all these other
No, it's not.
platforms,
No,
unless
it's
they. Okay.
It's
I mean,
outnumbered by almost 2-1 for the left wing.
Mhm.
It's
Okay,
just not. That's just not correct.
I would love to engage with this study a little bit further and get back to you. But like immediately, the first thing I see is Jimmy Kimmel Live when I scroll my mouse over it,
Yeah.
and that is a little suspicious to me because
Why?
Jimmy Kimmel Live had like one segment where he talked about his daughter's cancer, and it's literally the largest. It's after the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. It's the largest bubble on there, and the fact that you would use like clips such as, "Hey, Jimmy Kimmel goes out and like talks to children on the street," as how powerful leftist media is on the internet is it just kind of makes the study seem.
I think it's
infused
I think
with his
it's
political bias,
yeah.
isn't it?
It's disingenuous.
It is a funny argument to have because even in the UK, the BBC, and everyone, if you watched any of the Windrush videos I did, you could see as far back as, I think it was the mid-90s those documentaries were made. You know, it's obviously skewing a super left-wing narrative. But they've polled people many, many times in the UK over the past few years as well that I've seen. And half of people think the BBC is right-wing, and half think it's left-wing. And that's kind of the mindset. One of my old friends I've not seen for a wee while, and I forget what we were talking about. It was something to do with like Israel or Palestine. This is way before October 7th, way before all that kind of stuff. And he was trying to make the case that the BBC is very right-wing, very pro-Israeli. You know, it's like it's just like the Daily Mail. And it's at that point when you have like a friend who thinks like that, you know, you can maybe say your point, but even then it's not even worth it. It's just like, look, we're going to have a falling out because we see reality through a completely different lens. And you may think I should have, kind of went full autistic mode on him, but it's people have families and stuff or friends that they just shatter through being autistic, trying to force people to see the world through their lens. But I think I'm pretty good at having friends that they know I see the world through a different lens, but I'm not trying to make them believe what I believe, because imagine if I was to come to you and say the world that you believe, the lens through the way you see reality is actually all wrong. I have all the answers. You better listen to me. People don't want to fucking hear that, and it shouldn't surprise you when people think you're a dickhead when you do that.
For you to say, I believe that Jimmy Kimmel only referenced something political once. I think he does bring that up semi-regularly.
Okay, Jimmy Kimmel talking about politics and being put up against.
Was it Jimmy Kimmel that was it Stephen Colbert that they had like the vax, what you call it, like a dance show thing? People dressed up as syringes telling people to like take the vaccine. So maybe I suppose this was before all that, when they became super turbocharged political. But I think the political turbocharged on the late night post kind of came during Trump. So I don't really know why they're arguing against this. They're very clearly part of a liberal establishment. These kind of talk show guys. I don't think there's any cool talk show guy. There's none. They're always political. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even like something like Bill Maher made a show called Politically Incorrect. He knew it was going to be a political show, so I would say of all of them, even though Bill Maher is very unlikable and smug, he's probably the one I like the most. You know, if you had to like put a tier list, you have to say you like one of them above the others. I would probably put Bill Maher's show, just because he had interesting guests on. I think that would be the only reason why.
Against like No Bullshit, for example, which is a political YouTuber.
Bill Maher's the worst, maybe. But it's not. Compare him to Jimmy Kimmel. Something about Jimmy Kimmel's face is just so punchable. and his voice is annoying, and I mean, Bill Maher's is a smug dickhead, which again, it kind of makes me like him in a way, because he's just like, you know, he thinks he's so smug, he thinks he's so right about the world. For some reason, that's like more appealing than someone like Stephen Colbert, he's smug as well, but in a different way. You know, it's like, it's hard to put into words. It's kind of hard to describe. But I'd rather chill with Bill Maher than Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel. Who the other ones? There's a few other kind of like John Oliver. God, no, John Oliver's the worst. What the fuck are you guys talking about? John Oliver's the worst. John Oliver's the worst. Then Kimmel, then Colbert, then Bill Maher. Conan O'Brien, oh yeah, I don't know enough about these people anyways.
In the same study is absolute madness. If you look at the top few Jimmy Kimmel clips, the first 3 are going to be political, and then the overwhelming majority are just going to be commentary, or mostly comedy. It's crazy to me that you
matter if they were equally persuasive.
Well, like, so yeah, so like here's like a problem. So like, so real quick, right? So like, I see people listed on here like Philip DeFranco. Okay, Philip DeFranco is somebody that I would consider political. I'm pretty sure. Fuck, I haven't done this, but I'm pretty sure if I go to Philip DeFranco's channel and I sort by top, all of his most popular shit is gonna be political. Jimmy Kimmel's channel, the most popular clips are Jimmy surprises Bieber fan, celebrities read mean tweets, number 7, number 2, I told my kids I ate all their Halloween candy. Like, these are the views that are being counted as like left-wing political YouTube. Like,
that's a valuable lesson in socialism.
I feel like going to come from a politically left-wing position.
Yeah,
but like if I were to compare his things to somebody like Mark Dice, right? If I were to go to Mark Dice's channel, that's going to be all political videos.
Why would it matter if it was equally persuasive?
Because you can't use it to boost your numbers. You can't just like drop random shit in there just because like they every now and then talk about political subjects, but for the most part are like comedians. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, like John Oliver.
Stephen Colbert's
John
a
Oliver.
comedian.
Would you, okay, let me just answer this for me. Do you think like Fox News and I mean maybe not even Joe Rogan, but like Norm Macdonald and Fox News is not an apt comparison. Norm Macdonald is a conservative, but I would never consider like a Norm Macdonald YouTube channel to be like, hey, this is actually a right-wing political podcast.
Actually,
Rest in peace. This must have been when Norm Macdonald was still alive. Didn't he die like 2021 or something? He died shortly after this, I'm sure. So that's sad to hear.
I'm actually going to take a hard disagree with Hassan here. You know what? You guys are absolutely right. Now my question is, why isn't PewDiePie listed on this site under the right?
Well, because he's never.
Never mind. You're right, Destiny. You are correct.
No, let me ask a genuine question.
PewDiePie, after all, PewDiePie platform Ben Shapiro. Is Ben Shapiro not a right-wing political commentator?
That's
Why
true.
is he not listed on the site as a right-wing
For
commentator?
meme review?
What do you mean?
Oh,
wait, are you telling me that Stephen Colbert?
Jimmy Kimmel eating candy is actually political commentary, but fucking meme reviews with Ben Shapiro is not?
Tell me, what's PewDiePie's position on Obamacare? Do you know what that is?
It doesn't matter. He's obviously...
because
I think we've all seen the memes. PewDiePie literally won at life. You know, he got in the YouTube game early, got a nice wife, got a kid, fucked off to Japan. He wasn't explicitly political, but just to drop to drop the gamer word out of nowhere. And then he had a few other kind of like, you know, quote unquote right wing kind of like winks and nods. But he knew to kind of maintain his character, kind of like how wrestlers maintain kayfabe. You know, he knew he couldn't go down any political route. He needed just to do his own thing. And he's escaped the matrix by not really involving himself in any sort of political dispute. And maybe it's PewDiePie is the one that's going to save us. I'm waiting for him to kind of like, you know, I think he will step up and he will save us all. PewDiePie he's just lying in waiting. He's kind of like the sort of the King Arthur kind of like mythology, the king who sleeps, and eventually he awakes to become the emperor of the universe. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be PewDiePie. Am I right?
we don't know what his position is because he doesn't talk about explicit politics. You probably don't even watch it because Jimmy Kimmel openly talks about it. Every show is an anti-Trump tirade, and you know Nick,
that. You can't be this stupid, right? You can't be this stupid, right?
Can I?
Yeah, if PewDiePie said to you, using that sort of Sam Hyde analogy, PewDiePie sat you down. Let's say as much as you know about PewDiePie right now, which is just about his YouTube channel. I know he's doing some cool stuff with the computer and he rock climbs. But if he sat you down and said, listen, I need you to be my top guy, You need to follow me into battle. You're gonna have to fall on your sword for me potentially. I think most people will be like, yeah, I'm gonna give this guy a chance. Fuck it, why not? PewDiePie needs me. Okay, I'll do it. If PewDiePie walked in right now, he said, bro, let's go. I would shut the stream off and I would do exactly what needed to be done.
PewDiePie talks about culture war quite frequently. Why is no bullshit and Sargon of Akkad mentioned in this if they don't really talk about policy that frequently, but mostly talk about social commentary and the culture war?
That's the thing you're saying.
One at a time, please. One at a time.
Let's let Sargon.
Let's go Sargon. Sargon, go ahead.
Kind of irrelevant because you're right. These people do have political biases that come across in their media, even if that particular piece of media that you point to isn't necessarily a political piece. These things are political. I agree. PewDiePie probably should be on the right-wing side.
No, I still think it's silly. Like, that's my point. It's silly to put Jimmy Kimmel and then not.
Hey, Mr. said, I think it's a bit of a cope to say he's going to turn away from raising a family to wade through the filth of modern politics. That's exactly what it is. It's a huge cope. But right now, that cope is all we have. So we gotta do what we gotta do.
Not put PewDiePie. If you're not going to put PewDiePie in there, you shouldn't be putting Jimmy Kimmel in there. My point isn't like
Jimmy Kimmel is very
My
political.
point is to not look at the study at all because I have no idea what the fuck the study is, and beyond that, it doesn't seem like a reasonable study.
I think the more interesting question is, why do you guys have a problem with accepting left-wing media dominance?
Big bus.
Because conservatives usually use this to push this narrative that like, oh no, we have no voice anywhere, when it's just not true. There's plenty of voices in conservative media on YouTube, on radio, even on print, arguably, and then on cable news. Fox News is still the largest cable network in the United States. Like this idea that conservatives have no voice anywhere while they control both houses of Congress, while they have the president, like it's just really strange. I don't know.
Well, wait, can we look at Fox News for a moment? I think that's actually an interesting point there, because you look at the primetime show on Fox News, which is Tucker Carlson, the highest rated one. And have you been watching the show lately? I probably not. But if you look at the advertisements, they can only now advertise, what is it? Fox News' own commercials, My Pillow, and a Trump PAC.
Yeah, so people usually like to be associated with white nationalists.
One at a time, please.
Goldman Sachs
one at a time.
doesn't celebrate Gay Pride
you
Month,
think
really?
Goldman Sachs?
Oh shit!
Please, one at a please, one at a time. Nick, finish.
You're going to say that because Tucker Carlson and Fox News have a big presence, they have a big network, that this outweighs, if we're looking at the scale here, that this outweighs, again, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, all the networks. And then you factor in the corporations. Then you factor in the fact that somebody at Media Matters doesn't like what Tucker Carlson says, and you've got an advertiser boycott.
Can you repeat
does
what
that
he said?
happen? Excuse me, does that happen on any other channel? Have we ever heard of that? When you had a contributor, of course, I watch a show. When you have a contributor, for example, on Joy Reid.
Why do you think advertisers?
Joy Reid, hey, can I finish my point, or are you going to get a rebuttal, or how does
I'm
this
just confused. I want you to elaborate.
I used to watch it when I used to work, maybe when would it be? 2018, 2019. I would go on YouTube, I would type in Tucker Carlson tonight, change the search parameter by like within the last day, plus 20 minutes, and someone would, without fail, would always record the previous night's show of Tucker Carlson tonight, and I would put that on the background while I had my coffee in the morning and stuff like that. I would always have a bit of Tucker Carlson in the morning. Except when he had like episodes about aliens and stuff, I thought, why the fuck is this guy wasting like half hour of his show talking about aliens and UFOs? That didn't really make much sense to me.
It doesn't matter what Tucker Carlson said.
The point being, you say he has a voice. You say he has a voice, but he says the wrong thing, and all these corporations bend to the will of Media Matters. Now, Joy Reid can say, like, homosexuals are abominations and all this other stuff, and that gets revealed. There's not a boycott. There's not an outcry. She doesn't even get fired from her job. So you go around trying to pretend like there's any kind of parody. It's just simply
I don't even like
absurd.
Joanne Reid. I don't know why you're bringing up Joanne Reid. I don't give a shit what
Listen, guys, please, give me a second. Guys, please give me a second here, okay? Listen. You will have time to rebuttal. If you have an issue with a certain thing, write it down. Let Nick finish all the way, and then you respond. And the same goes to you guys. Let Hassan and Destiny finish all the way, and then give your rebuttals. Please keep it this way.
The only times I try to interrupt is because I genuinely want to understand Nick's perspective, or if he's saying something that I'm not very.
There's nothing genuine about you. There's nothing genuine about your questions or anything about you.
That's spot on. Yeah, someone said nice BMW. Yeah, I think this car is. I always kind of thought what this car was, but you're right. It's kind of like a. It looks like their version of like a BMW coupe. Which is like an M3 maybe? Yeah, M3 as you said.
No,
I don't know if
yeah,
that was entirely true, but can Destiny and Hassan, do you guys agree with Sargon that the majority of the mainstream media, right, the MSNs, CNNs, MSNBCs, Foxes, the majority is left leaning?
no.
I mean, like, I probably would, but that's really fucking hard because, like, I mean, based on my engagement with the media, it seems to be that way. But for instance, if you go to like certain parts of the country, if you like, Nick is here to laugh off talk radio. I'm pretty sure talk radio actually reaches like more customers than even fucking Facebook does. A lot of people listen to talk radio.
A billion and a half people talk radio reaches.
Please let Destiny finish.
Wait, I'm talking about in the United States. Unless our population grew fivefold, I don't think we have a billion and a half.
I was referring to the United States when I said a billion and a half. You didn't understand.
Well, wait,
my
then why are
point,
you
right?
talking
You're
about
being,
the global
totally
Facebook monthly
genuine.
users if you're talking about the popularity of left or right media? Oh,
because you're saying that
obfuscate.
Facebook reaches as many people as talk radio. This is obviously ridiculous.
Oh, fuck.
When I say as many people, I'm referring to politics within the United States. That talk radio is still a really popular way to advertise things.
Yeah. How many people have a Facebook account?
In just the United States?
Are you going to say Facebook has a left-leaning?
I can't believe I just got sidetracked so fucking hard. Slippery Nick, doing it again. I don't even
Slippery
remember what the
Nick.
fuck my original point was. Anyway, there are
You really
some...
shouldn't get started with the names. There are going to be some ugly ones with you, my friend.
No, I've heard it all, buddy. Don't worry. This idea that we...
I don't think he had heard it all at this point. And was this before he was like outed as like a cuck? Because he was still with his wife at the point, who... Oh, what was it? I think it was a great debate with like Gavin McInnes versus Destiny. And maybe I'll try to find the clip for you guys. It's brilliant. Gavin McInnes was screaming at Destiny, screaming at him. And Destiny was just laughing it off. But every single thing Gavin said in his like a psychotic rage came to be true. Oh, it's fucking brilliant.
We somehow like segued also from like, is media popular to are people restricting advertisements to certain people? That's like the most non sequitur thing I've heard in my entire life. If you want to argue about like, are right-leaning views more popular to advertisers than left-leaning views? Of course I'm going to agree that left-leaning views are more popular. Tucker Carlson almost fucking took a hard right into white nationalism. Yeah, no fucking shit. A lot of people aren't going to be platforming his shit or supporting his shit via advertisers as much. But that's a totally different argument on, do conservatives have a voice in the United States? Is there representation in the media for conservatives? Which I believe there is. Now, is the media, like slanted to the left in terms of their bias? Maybe it's possible. My engagement with media is generally on the internet, which is going to be more left-leaning than say somebody's engagement who's only on like talk radio or local news. Right?
This was funny as fuck.
Out right now.
You are a permanent victim.
Being less woke links down to immigration. It links down to inflation. It is linked to foreign policy. All of that stuff. It's all the same.
Okay, sorry. Gavin's mom needed me for a second.
See, another reason that you don't exist in real life is the way you talk. If we were in person, you would be choked out right now.
Hey, if we were in person, you'd probably be drunk off your ass and get arrested and thrown in the tank, okay?
See, I would be arrested for assaulting you.
Yeah, I'm sure you would.
That's why you talk the way you talk, because you live online.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
People say that, and then I see them in real life, and they're just these demure little submissive boys, so I don't know. Maybe. Listen, if you see me, you beat the shit out of me, okay? Knock yourself out.
I thought there was a clip of him actually screaming at him. Gavin snaps. Yeah, I want to see him snapping. Here we go.
Malone is not the co-inventor of the mRNA vaccine, and his only contribution to mRNA research was a paper that he did as like a grad student. He owns a few patents
that's
a long
false.
time ago. That is absolutely
He was one
true.
of the many contributors to the mRNA vaccine.
No,
he did not write one fucking paper.
He had
by the way,
zero
how many
input
papers have you written?
whatsoever.
Why are we constantly dealing with these people who have never contributed anything outside of playing some fucking video games?
Okay.
A guy plays video games.
This is
on
you're out of line.
Twitch,
You're
and
way
he's
out of
talking
line.
to a
You're way out of
doctor
line. You're way
about
out of
all the
line.
amazing
Gavin.
He's contributed. Do something. Do something besides letting people fuck your wife. Do something. The more we accomplish, the more you fucking inconsequential cunts trivialize our accomplishments.
All right, we
the
have to go
less
over to
you
Steven.
accomplish,
Well, I need to
you
respond.
trivialize
We have to
other
go over to
people's
Steven.
accomplishments.
Hold on.
Do
Excuse
something.
me.
You're
we
literally
do have to
on
give-
your
we have to
ass
give Steven
for
a
a
chance to
living.
respond.
Get up.
We do have to. Go ahead, Steven.
I fucking love a bit of Gavin McInnes. He is a guy who, like I said last stream, he's kind of like, stuck in his sort of like philo-Semitic ways, civic nationalist to a degree. But guys, Gavin, peak human being in many ways. Now back to the shit debate, I'm afraid.
Right, which is going to slant right. So
if this drags on, is not that great. What I might do the last kind of bit of the stream, I was thinking about an amazing video I watched years ago that I'll see if I can find. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was like it was on literally blood sports, like the what's his face? Who's that fat guy? Ethan Ralph. It was Frank Hassel versus Boogie 2988, and it was just ruthless, fucking ruthless. I loved that patter. It was so good.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to quantify which one is, more left or more right in terms of all the media. And I don't think you can do it with a study that lists Jimmy Kimmel as a left-wing political commentator on YouTube.
What do you say? Murdoch makes fun of Gavin McInnes. Yeah, I was like, hi, I'm Gavin McInnes. You want to put something up my ass? That was brilliant. That was so good. Gavin McInnes has never quite lived that down. I think he came from a time where, sort of like, I guess, locker room humor, we'll put it, doesn't really translate all that well after a few years. And I don't know why it was bad optics to put something up your ass on stream. I've had to take a note of that, just in case I get any crazy ideas. Don't put anything up your ass on stream. You're not going to look good. You're going to regret it. It's not a good look.
Responses to that?
I mean, it's just utterly ridiculous. If you're going to deny this basic reality, there was a study that was done by the Media Research Center a couple of months ago, which said that it was like 92% of coverage was against Trump. And
it's
I don't
so
think
strange that 92%
it shouldn't be controversial. It shouldn't be
it's a joke.
Interruptions, right? It just look. We can disagree about obviously the Mueller report, and we can disagree about whether the coverage was accurate or not. But to me, if we can't even agree, if it's such a controversial thing to say, the media has a left-wing bias, that culture-making institutions generally in America, or, just major conglomerates in America. I mean, if we're going to pretend like that institutional bias doesn't exist, I mean, I don't even know how we're supposed to have a conversation. It feels like you're living in another world. I mean, especially given what I do for a living. You know how hard it is to make a living trying to just say common sense, right-wing things without them coming for your Discord, your Streamlabs, your YouTube, your Facebook, your Twitter. What did they just pass the other week on Facebook? I mean, it's just, I really do feel like we're living in two different dimensions here. If you're going to try and sit here and say that the people that run these social media companies,
I know what you're trying to say. What you mean is this.
Yeah, as Mark Zuckerberg became based and cool, because I don't actually have Instagram. Well, I made one, but I've not really utilized it because I want to just maybe post some of the shorts that I've made. But I need to make more shorts to make it actually worth my while. But you don't have to look very far on Instagram to immediately get some sort of a fresh Instagram account. Fresh. Don't follow anybody. And it doesn't take long to find Hyperborean edits. So I'm just thinking, when did this happen? When did Instagram, owned by Facebook, when did it get so schizo and based? Zuck cannot be cool. I agree. He's the definition of I mean, I don't believe in lizard people, but if somebody was a lizard person, it would be Mark Zuckerberg. Just the way he moves. It's very uncanny. Kind of reminds me of that scene in Men in Black. Remember was it Men in Black 2? Where that alien ship crashes down, takes control of that guy's skin. That kind of is how Mark Zuckerberg kind of operates in society. That's kind of the vibe I get off of him. It's like when you ever walk past a mannequin wearing, a mannequin in a shop, wearing clothes or whatever. You have this weird aura where it's a mannequin, but you still have this aura that's a person. That's the impression I would get if I met Mark Zuckerberg.
Speaking from a position of privilege.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
That's a really funny meme, and I unfortunately have to kind of provide a little bit more perspective, a little bit more background into what Nick is trying to say.
Yeah, TikTok's cucked as well now.
When people come for specific channels or Discord servers and whatnot, if it's not led by right-wing people like Destiny, the Conquest that ended up with Destiny losing his Twitter account, which happens quite frequently to the members of the left as well. But more often than not, it's for things like Tucker Carlson defending a child rapist on a talk show, or Tucker Carlson calling Arabs
Peter Thiel,
apes. Or
hopefully no one cares I interrupted Hassan there. Yeah, someone's mentioning I was describing Peter Thiel, not Mark Zuckerberg, which is true. I mean, I've seen some things about Peter Thiel. Because one of my mates was he didn't know much about Peter Thiel, about the kind of the weird stuff. He just was listening to Peter Thiel on his podcast and listened to one of his books. And he's like, yeah, this guy seems kind of interesting. The idea of, you create your own niche, kind of interesting business practices, sort of a libertarian-esque view. But I said to him, but he, he's like a gay guy that killed his gay lover. He threw him off a building because his husband was jealous. So just by that story alone, it's like that's a red card, I'm afraid. No, thank you.
Primitive monkeys on a talk show. Now, beyond that, if Tucker Carlson's white nationalism gets to a point where it's not profitable, unfortunately, that's capitalism, baby. If you hate that, then maybe you should reconsider what your perspective is on capitalism.
Yeah, but that's not just capitalism, is it? I mean, there are well-funded.
Marketing dollars moving away from Tucker Carlson's show is absolutely a product of capitalism.
Hang on, right? There are very, very well-funded and well-engaged and well-staffed and well-manned on social media networks of activist groups that are very, very insistent on getting people like Tucker Carlson defunded. It's actually somewhat of a fucking cancer to the dialogue, and it's making the left look like a predatory group of people who are out for blood, the way that they try to hurt people at every given turn. And it's not something that like nobody's seen. I mean, surely you guys are well aware that things like Media Matters, Hope Not Hate, all these sort of activist organizations are well connected and do a lot of damage to their political opponents.
This is I fucking hate that I have to do this argument.
Who did we just lose? We just lost him.
Hassan just dipped.
Oh, okay, good. All right, oof, I can do this without him hearing that.
Interesting to look back on this now, talking about base Tucker Carlson and how he's like edging towards white identity and that kind of stuff. And then when he did get, I forget the exact script where I think he got fired. I don't know if he got fired, but he definitely got the show cancelled, which I suppose is the same as being fired. People thought he's on his own, he can let loose, he can be based. But something that like Devin Stack would always say, like years and years ago, he was always super wary about Tucker, identifying the the CIA. Even Devin Stack in like 2019, 2020 was talking about Tucker's dad in the CIA, when Tucker apparently didn't even know his dad was in the CIA, and then wearing those sort of like red Kabbalah-esque bracelets. The signs were there. And then he only dips his toe, gives a nod and a wink, because I think that's he sees the way the wind is blowing. So you can't reject the sort of white identity movement. So he has to then embrace it to the extent to which he can then try to then pivot the energy in a way that, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase that. He's trying to like derail things. He's a bit of a bad actor in that way. He is essentially, American aristocracy. He exists because of how the current state of things are. So to upset things with a sort of cultural revolution, it's not really in his interest to do so.
Man, fuck.
Oh, is
he back?
He's back, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm sorry, boys. Okay, if you're left wing and you follow my stream, fuck off. I hate you. However, this idea that media corporations are doing something to further like positive public dialogue is a absolute fucking fantasy. This is capitalism 101. What the media companies are gonna do is, as soon as
that's a fucking L take from Destiny. The idea that companies don't push stuff, even though it's gonna fail. Look at there's like so many games that came out since this stream that are just slop. Look at all the Netflix shows. They're not good enough to be in TV or in films. They just go straight to Netflix. It's just pure slop. It's just pure propaganda. Gypsy Crusader. I trust Gypsy Crusader. I've not seen much of like Paul Miller. I think he's a cool guy. I think he's funny. Again, if you're funny, you're in my books, I would say. I've just not seen much of him. Everyone sees the odd clip from time to time of him doing his Omegle streams. But I've never really listened to him much in person. I think I listened to some of him in jail, which is interesting. But I've never really listened much to him. Old Joker thing gets old. Yeah, it's part of his identity, I suppose. Imagine it again, all this sort of like content stuff with like people who put their face out there. It's kind of like wrestling. Not to say I follow this mentality, but it's like wrestling. He's playing a character in a way. And similar to how in wrestling, your character becomes maybe needs to be reignited, it needs to change. Then he will either fade away to nothing, or he will reinvent himself to be in the main event once again.
As it becomes politically expedient to do so, they're going to throw their money in that direction.
No, Gypsy Crusader was in jail. So my theory is that they have enough money, it's purely propaganda. or to aid structural change. A lot of these games merely make money, which makes me ponder what the goal is. The goal is just to flood it with just generic sort of slop. Because a lot of these game companies, they get the money. They're funded by like I made a video about this ages ago, but ESG. There's different kind of like groups that will then fund these games. Because I tried to find documentaries of modern games being made, because I wanted to compare a documentary of a modern game being made to how an older game is made, and I couldn't really find that many, at least modern games in like big studios, because I really feel like a lot of these modern games are not made by game developers. They're made by programmers. The people who actually create the game, quote unquote, is just a producer with a message they want to say. They give that to the programmer, and they just code it into the game and make a very, uninspired, barely game concept. And they rise and fall so many times. I think okay.
This idea that some media company is going to stake its reputation on progressive values is hilariously stupid. There is no board of directors that no CEO has walked in front of and said, listen, trans people might not be popular, but I think we're going to go ahead and push our company in that direction anyway. Absolutely not. Companies absolutely follow lock and step with cultural norms. And that is unless
please let Destiny finish. Please let Destiny finish.
Okay.
Please let Destiny shut up.
I do acknowledge that there is a framework by which you can view this. So if you're somebody like Nick that believes that Jews control the whole fucking world and they're the ones pushing narratives, right? Because multiculturalism destroyed the white man. Sure, maybe they do. But for the rest of us that live in reality, this is capitalism 101, baby. Okay, Black Panther wasn't put out as a movie because they thought that it would help black people in the US. They did it because they knew it would make a fuck ton of money, because there are a lot of people across the entire fucking world that engage with types of media, and having more diversity helps and shit like that. That's where it comes from. This is a capitalism 101 thing.
Black Panther is what Lord of the Rings... Black Panther is for what black people, what Lord of the Rings is for British people. Lord of the Rings was kind of created by Tolkien to give the British people mythological lore, because unlike the Irish, the British kind of like mythology was kind of like dismantled quite heavily. So he essentially created a new lore. And that's what Black Panther is. It creates lore for the Africans. That's all it does.
Okay.
Companies moralizing issues, right?
Okay, so no.
Mythological, made up lore. Where am I going?
You were just fucking wrong, mate, right? Listen to the director of Black Panther. Just listen to him. Like, have you watched any of his interviews or anything like that? It's all about the politics. If you look, was it Tim Cook at Apple? He sounds like a preacher. He's giving sermons.
The director of Black Panther, who funded his movie?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
It was a large company that was looking to make a lot of money, Sargon. It wasn't him. He didn't make an indie film.
A lot of money, but the idea that you think there isn't a political and moral goal in what they're doing is just wrong.
There is a political goal. The political goal is to show society whatever it is they want to see, so they can make the most fucking money off of it. That's absolutely true. Why didn't we get if that was true, then why didn't we get a Black Panther movie like this like 20 years ago, or more women in media 20 years ago?
Because this particular variant of politics is a relatively recent phenomenon, and it's taken the media establishment, the Hollywood establishment by storm. There seems to be no one with any kind of
director might have
Sargon, if your world was
I
remember one of my first indications of this is like noticing, and I knew of it, but to actually deal with it in real time, I was watching. Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of like War of the Worlds, like the record, the Jeff Wayne. Anyone needs to listen to something cool, listen to War of the Worlds. And then the Tom Cruise film, it was alright, it wasn't bad. But then the BBC, I think, they made a War of the Worlds TV series. I thought that could be interesting. I mean, I know it's the BBC, but sometimes they make some good stuff. I think the main protagonist of this is set in England, of an alien invasion. The protagonist is an African asylum seeker who made his way from Calais into Britain, and that's who they frame as the main character. I mean, what the fuck does that tell you?
Have personal political goals, but that doesn't change the underlying reality that Destiny's trying to get you to understand, which is that big corporations are never going to fund a movie just for political purposes. And if you were to understand this a little bit better, we would make the comparison between whoever the director of Black Panther was, which I don't even know, versus Boots Riley, an outspoken, avowed communist who's been a director and activist for decades. The reason why Boots Riley is Sorry to Bother You is an indie movie that makes a decent amount of money, but still is not being funded by these sorts of like some Chinese corporation or whatever. And Black Panther is because Black Panther is actually trying to make money, versus the other one is genuinely trying to promote social change.
And
There
it
are
actually,
loads
this
of
makes me
movies-
so sad.
hang on,
This makes me
hang
so
on.
sad. Well, it makes me so sad because like this is
No,
all
hang on,
capitalism
no,
at
no,
once.
Destiny, hang on a second. Right. So there are loads of examples of movies that have not done well because of an excessive focus on politics. With things like Black Panther, you're lucky because you're stumbling in, and same with Captain Marvel, you're stumbling into a kind of cultural pocket that is capable.
I mean, this might be the most chud thing I'll say, but when you play a game, like Alan Wake, the first Alan Wake game, great game, enjoyed it, and then the next game comes out, which apparently was quite a good game. Not played it myself, but why have I not played it? Because I think the protagonist you play for 90% of the game is a black woman, and well, very simply, I don't want to play as a black woman in a game. That's really my kind of baseline for a game. Do I play as a black woman? Yes. Okay. Well, I'll probably skip this one. Thanks for making it. Thanks for putting years of your time into it. But I'm gonna skip this one out. Thanks very much. I'll wait for the mod to come out where you get to play someone else. Thank you.
Of both pushing an agenda and making money, but there are many films that are just complete losses. I mean, I don't have a list off the top of my head.
Not to say I don't want to play as a woman necessarily. Some games are built for that. It's fine. Even if it's not realism, if anything, if it's unrealistic, it's better. But just to play, again, it's like, because you play a game, you kind of want to be either a self-insert or a power fantasy, or there's maybe a reason why the character is like a weak person. So why would you make the character a black woman? Because your audience isn't. That kind of like overlap of black and woman, having that as your audience is a very small part of the Venn diagram. So maybe people can get over it, but because a lot of games have that kind of Marvel quip humor in them, and the quip humor is coming from black women. I just can't fucking do it. I'm sorry.
But Ghostbusters, how about the female Ghostbusters? Was that
How about
big,
Ghostbusters 2? How about Ghostbusters 2 that was all men and also sucked? What I mean, what do you mean?
So
People make
the point
shitty movies all the
they
time.
Does that
poured all
mean
this
that
money
new
into a big
Ghostbusters
reboot
wasn't an
and cost
agenda?
money?
Right,
Wait,
and they are. Of course, it was. Listen to Paul Feig. He says it's all about the agenda. Same with the guy who made Black Panther. Same with Captain Marvel. Like these things are agenda driven, and this is something that's driving Disney into the ground. Man, look at Star Wars.
What? They just acquired Disney owns like fucking 80% of the fucking theater these days. Didn't they just acquire like the largest fucking?
Yeah, I know, mate. But I don't think it's going to last forever. Look what they've done to the Star Wars franchise.
Wait, is your argument genuinely that like Disney? Wait, I don't really watch your videos, Sargon, but is your argument actually that Disney is like that Disney has a moral objective to like make the world more progressive, and because of that, they're just like burning?
I saw a recent clip from Nick, and it was absolutely brilliant. What he talked about, like Star Wars, and how the way that I guess women, or I guess what the argument here, what Sargon's making, where it's a political agenda, shapes the movie rather than passion. Where the old Star Wars was like deep lore, there was kind of like archetypes, certain characters filled archetypal, if I can say that correctly, roles in which, even though it's a made up a universe and set in space with all these creatures that aren't real, you can still identify with it, you can still understand the broader narrative that's been told. Whereas now, it's just, what if we had a woman, a Jedi? I wonder if she had 2 lightsabers. Okay, now make that into a film. That's kind of the mentality that goes into a lot of these modern films. That I can't see. I mean, I've not been to the cinema in so long. That's actually a lie. I went to go see. Well, they re-showed the first Lord of the Rings film, so I went to go see that again with my girlfriend a few weeks ago. And honestly, the film's great, but the whole experience, I was looking forward to the whole cinema experience, but it was honestly quite disappointing. There was some dickhead that kept talking behind us. There was some retard in front of us that spilt popcorn everywhere and insisted that they stood up to like clean it up. Obviously, everything's really expensive. I think I told the story actually last stream. Then we tried to get a bus home. There was some drunk girl kept talking about how she can't get home, and she was like hanging around this asylum hotel. It's just I said to my missus, it's like that, that serves us right for trying to have a nice night. We tried to go out, have a nice time, but it was an extremely blackpilling experience just going out to the cinema.
Cash right now, and they're failing.
I didn't say Disney, no. People in Disney. I mean, I don't know about like the high ups. I'm sure they're fucking hating it.
Are you familiar? Do you not think that the board of directors has a vested interest, a fiduciary responsibility in ensuring shareholder maximizing profit and
maximize profits, capitalism?
Shareholder value is
fucking insufferable cunt.
That you have is that you view these things as
yes.
You don't realize that these
from a materialist perspective, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. But then they're not monolithic. There are people operating.
No, not monolithic. Materialistic.
Yeah. Okay.
A materialist.
What I'm saying is the thing is more than the sum of its components, but the components within it are individual actors with their own agendas, and they come to these things with a particular perspective, and in many cases to push a specific agenda. And this agenda is costing them money. They have their hits, but they have many losses as well. And it's something that I don't think is sustainable. I mean, haven't they stopped making Star Wars films at this point?
Just to summarize your argument, what you're saying is that Disney as an organization or a corporation is not necessarily doing things politically, but there are people who are making decisions at Disney that do have political leanings that are doing that in order.
So you think like 75-year-old executives at Disney are like thinking, we really
want gay rights.
We really need to make the world more SJW. I'm a millionaire or a billionaire, an executive at Disney.
I didn't say that.
You literally just said the opposite of that.
I realize that you, as a Marxist, have a problem with like 75-year-old millionaires, but I'm literally not saying that. So if you
no, he's not saying there's a problem. It's just do you know why you know about Paul Freeg's fucking political stance?
I just don't know why these leftoids are arguing against this. If anyone makes a piece of art, if you make a game, if you write a book, if you tell a story, if you create a game, unless you make a game that's like Tetris, if you're telling a story, you're going to weave in your view of the world. And if your view of the world is leaning one way or the other, it's going to express itself through the media you create. Most of the time, in subtle ways. I would even say like some games that are kind of like left-leaning in ways, but the propaganda is subtle enough, or if it's not an overbearing part of the plot, then I can simply overlook it for the sake of immersion. Like Mass Effect has kind of lots of, we all need to band together as one blob of life against everyone, rather than band together as humanity. But when some games just, that's why stuff is just so awful to watch these days, because it's so explicit. So, I mean, I don't even need to go down this. Everyone knows, everyone in the chat knows that everything made these days is just shit. All the good art's already been made. So there's just no point. Oh, silver medal. That's all right.
Answers, or why you know that some directors have. The reason why they do that is because capitalists that want to make money on their movies throw them onto the fucking media because they know reactionaries like you two are going to make a fuck ton of videos talking about them. Remember all the videos that were made about how Captain Marvel is going to fucking fail because Captain Marvel was so politicized and SJW? That movie went on to make over $1 billion fucking dollars. The only reason you know the political views of any of these fucking people is because the big companies put them out there so that they talk about it, so that it drives up hype for the movie. That's the only fucking reason.
I don't agree.
I wish capitalism worked like how you thought it did, Sargon, because I would be such a stronger capitalist. But this idea that companies are actually putting morals ahead of like just maximizing the amount of money they make for their business is comical. Like even in fucking China.
Right, I need the loo again. With the Burnout background, do we want another game in the background? Because I quite like driving around. It's quite cathartic while the stream is playing. Because the only other PS2 games I have is like Dynasty Warriors 4 and Time Splitters 2. That's all I really had time to actually download before the stream. So that's all we've really got. But I can happily play this, and because it's more just background filler, isn't it? It doesn't really. Yeah, Burnout's cool. This is kind of nice to watch. Maybe get some Dynasty Wars on. Well, I'm gonna jump to the loo again because I'm drinking a lot of liquid. Because I need to be hydrated before the gym. Is anyone going to the gym after work today? Because if you're not, what's your excuse? And with that, I'll leave you with these retards.
Where the Black Panther was released, the fucking posters for that movie had to cover the actor's face because people in China don't really like black people that much. Like there's so much dumb shit that happens for people to make money. This idea that, I don't know. The businesses are actually trying to moralize their problems.
I'm beginning to realize that Sargon is genuinely a liberal because he unironically thinks that having more female, prison guards is actually what the liberals are pushing.
Our business is driving morality and culture.
Businesses have never driven morality.
Not even moral, though. It's funny
guys,
with the Nazis in World War II.
Okay. Sargon, please respond to that, and then Nick, if you'd like to go in, then Destiny Hassan, and we could wrap it up.
Okay.
And,
okay.
There is just no doubt about this. You guys living in Alabama It's fine.
Wait, your mic cut out.
but-
Could you repeat that? You said there's
Sorry,
no doubt
can you
about
hear
this,
me?
and then you
Yeah,
said there's no doubt about
doubt
this.
You guys can live in denial about this if you want, but the people who make these movies have morals of their own. And the people who fund these things have morals of their own. Of course, they obviously have physical, pragmatic, necessary requirements on them, and this is why I think that there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes about, well, probably serious conversations about sort of like, the profitability of woke movies, and in many ways they don't seem very profitable. But there's no doubt that there's a push towards this. The directors will tell you this, the actors will tell you this. I don't see why we would sit there and say that they don't have this agenda. Because we're Marxists, I guess. Because we sit there and think, well, every capitalist is
evidence
evil.
is not on your side.
I thought we were all
making a lot of money.
Concluding statements here. Is
Well,
that
that's what
not
Sargon make his concluding statement.
Let Sargon finish his
Sorry,
conclusion.
not
about this all
all
the
of them
time.
are
I'm
making...
right? Isn't this like kind of your bread and butter? I'm surprised that you actually don't have any empirical data to back up your statements right now, given the fact that this is like the majority of your
on how many
analysis, right?
You're saying these movies are failing. Like the two highest-grossing movies last year were the Black Panther and the Avengers: Infinity War.
Your argument about the right-wing media was that the two, just because the biggest were leftist, doesn't mean the majority. And it's
aren't the majority of movies now like SJW propaganda? Isn't that like your argument that all the movies today are like all SJW shit? They all seem to be still be making a fuck ton of money, right? Like,
no.
Well, I think the two movies that people are probably talking about is Captain Marvel and Black Panther, right? Sargon, if you want to conclude your concluding statement, and then we can go over to Nick.
Yes, there is definitely a political agenda being driven in movies. Now, luckily, some of them, like Captain Marvel and Black Panther, do very well. Many of them don't do very well, and I think this is going to be something with diminishing returns as we go into the future. There we go.
Okay. Nick, do you have anything to
add? Yeah. Obviously it all started out about Mueller, but it quickly became about media bias. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows that the media bias is in news media. Everybody knows the liberal bias is in Hollywood. We know it exists everywhere, and we're living in it. I mean, there's just simply no disputing that. And we're talking about movies like Captain Marvel and Black Panther, but you could look at advertisements, you could look at sitcoms, you could look at video games. Why is it the case now that every movie I look at, the protagonist is there's a girl, but
we'll do one more big race and let's chuck on Time Splitters. I'll go back to the next point here.
Sitcoms, you could look at video games. Why is it the case now that every movie I look at, the protagonist is there's a girl, but she's special. There's something different about her. She's actually kind of quirky, and she's going to kick ass and save the world. I mean, that's every movie now.
Isn't the Fallout protagonist?
That's every video game. Battlefield 5, that new Far Cry game where the protagonists are like black lesbians or something. I mean, we know this. The Versace advertisement, they're trying to sell fucking perfume, and what do they got on the front cover? Anybody want to take a look? So, and again, and I do want to clarify, this is the last thing I'll say, which is what Sargon said. We're not saying that the people at the top, we're not saying that the major, CEOs and CFOs and owners are saying, yeah, get a little interracial kissing in there. Yeah, make that character homosexual or something. We're not saying that it's coming from the...
Yeah, see, when I'm like sometimes questioning my worldview, because I feel like we sometimes do live in a bit of an echo chamber from time to time. When I was at the cinema, when I was watching the adverts prior to the film starting, I was like, I'm just going to pay attention to the ads. I'm going to see who's in the ads. And my worldview was vindicated 100%. Every time there was a white guy, it was kind of like that, that Portland Antifa sort of archetype person, skinny, weird freak. That's one. Another one is the Homer Simpson character. Homer Simpson and Antifa freak is the only two archetypes that work within the, I guess, modern media advertisement and films as well, TV shows. Everything else was just gay propaganda. Mixed race marriages, mixed race couples. I was just like, it was like, I was disgusted. You're kind of like, we almost like laugh about it. But then when you actually watch it, you just think, this is disgusting. This is what people actually sit down and watch on a day to day. And it's just, we all know. I love Homer Simpson. Yeah, Homer Simpson is like, in a way, he's actually like a great character. He is played off to be the retard, which he is in many ways. But at the same time, he has everything going for him. He's got he's got a wife, he's got the kids, he's got the house, he's got the car. He works on a nuclear power plant that's kind of based. And he meets all these famous people. He's got like the most perfect archetype life.
The top down, what we're saying is that The people that are actually directing these things have an agenda. People that are directing the advertisements. For example, in Stranger Things, this was a popular thing that was going on our side of the internet. In the second season of Stranger Things, I guess a white girl kissed a black boy or something to that effect. And it came out like, why did that happen? Well, it wasn't even in the script. The director said, why don't you just do that? Now, did somebody come down from the top and say, hey, we need a kiss like this. This is going to make more money? Or was it a director with a personal bias who said something like this might be good for my agenda, whatever that might be? So, and that this is controversial, that this is even an argument, just shows how out of touch and disingenuous you guys are being, because I think everybody knows the world we're living in. That's one thing we can't.
Okay,
dispute.
all right.
The fact that you want to bring up an interracial kissing as a part of your like media analysis genuinely shows me how far you're going.
He's fucking right though.
Two children
Wait,
kissing.
can I ask?
Please
can I
let
just
Hassan finish.
All right, I'll let him finish.
That was really good, Nick. That was a really clever rebuttal.
Well, hang on. Before we move on,
I love that you want to be taken
Hold on,
seriously
Sargon.
as
Go ahead,
a
Hassan.
commentator, and yet you unironically get triggered by a
Personal
black
attack,
person and a
Hassan.
white
Personal
person kissing in a Netflix movie.
I don't
and
think
you
anybody
that
said
that
it was-
is social progress. Who gives a fuck? That's the whole point. Like, who gives a fuck one way or the other? Ultimately, is it making money or is it not making money? If you think that,
That is just such a classic leftist argument. Whenever you critique culture from a traditional perspective, why do you even care? It doesn't even matter. It's like, well, I'm making a point to me that it does matter. Why do you even care? In my Tucker Carlson voice there. There we go. Yeah, let's chuck on. I think I'm in a Grand Prix, so let's just do like a save state. How the fuck do I do that? Save state. There we go. And then I exit. Oh, can we quit that entirely? Bear with me a second. Let me see if I can get the... There we go.
you think that movies have
Guys, get yourself the PS2 emulator. It's fucking based. You can even run this off your phone as well. You can run the emulators off your phone, connect a controller up. It is the way forward.
a moral interest in pushing a narrative and changing social culture.
Hold on a sec, let me just play a bit of this. Let me just... How fucking banging is this? It's a fucking introduction song, isn't it? But for the sake of this, we'll turn it down. Unless people want a bit of
Beyond,
background
like,
music.
The people who are trying to do it in like little ways, in the way that you apparently, interracial mixing is also a problem. But beyond that, if you think that there is this larger idea, then you have to prove it. You have to tell me that like this isn't just successful because people want to watch this sort of stuff. You have to show me that despite the fact that these companies are failing, they're still doing it.
Okay, what do you consider proof in this regard? Is the directors and the actors saying
let's continue. Let's conclude the statement.
I think Sargon wanted to make a quick, very quick.
Yeah, very.
Oh, and I realised I exposed my recommended videos. What was actually shown there? What have we got in the recommended tab? Wrestling. I was watching some classic wrestling. Can't go wrong there. Lotus Eaters. See this channel. I've not really seen much of this channel before, but see, like, he has like Pizzagate in the title and has like so many views. I'm pretty sure I said Pizzagate in one of my old videos, and I got it like demonetized. Don't know how they managed that.
Correction.
Quickly.
He wanted to make a correction to his past. Make the correction, and we'll go to Destiny immediately. Please make it very quick.
So in 2018, Disney's profits were down 18%, 17%, and they've cancelled all the other Star Wars spin-offs because they got woke and went broke. It's killing Disney.
No, it's because they're shit. The prequels were shit too. I mean,
they're shit because of identity politics, mate.
Why were the prequels shit?
Yeah,
the prequels shit because George Lucas is now a touch old.
Do you see the
prequels? I don't remember much of the prequels. I must admit. See that first film? That's probably the second last film I saw in the cinema. They were re-showing the Phantom Menace, and me and my mate went to go see it. And like, it's kind of a shitty film. We actually left halfway through for a break. We like left a joint outside. Like, this before when I smoked quite a bit. We like left a joint literally just like behind a bin or something. We left the cinema halfway through during the pod racing. Came back in. And then see the last part where there's like the Darth Maul fight. That's really good. The music's really cool there. But the fact you have to watch almost an entire film to get to that point, it's fucking brutal.
The difference there? Do you see why identitarians get so mad at you? Because you just said that the prequels are shit because they're bad movies on their own merit, but the sequels were shit because of identity politics. Maybe they were just shit movies.
They certainly were shit movies, but the cause of them being shit movies isn't the same for the prequels.
Can you tell me what part of the Star Wars movie was ruined because of identity politics? Was it that the main character was a woman, or was there a black guy?
I can give you my opinion if you like.
Sure.
But the point is, the new Star Wars movie are not raking in the dosh, and they're being cancelled because Disney is costing money. Like Hassan's like, evil Jewish billionaires.
The new Star Wars movies aren't making money.
Despite the fact that movies are losing money, they're still pushing these movies because they want to push the moral narrative. Doesn't that mean that Star Wars would still continue to make these movies then?
Holy shit! Oh wait, you're right.
What the fuck are you talking about, Sargon?
They canceled the movies because they weren't making money.
Saying.
Let Sargon finish completely, please. Hold your thought.
Hassan, listen, right? The Jewish billionaires that you are so interested in and hate so much, they are concerned with their profits. The people down the chain who are interested in morals are the ones losing their money, and they've cancelled the Star Wars films because the people further down the chain are fucking it up, pushing a moral message. I don't know how much clearer I can make that.
Okay, wait, I just want to give 3 facts real quick. Wait, three quick facts, okay? The Force Awakens made...
Let Asmund go. Please go ahead and then Destiny.
What he's saying, just so everybody is on the same page here. What you're saying is that the people in the middle, Sargon, are basically making decisions that are making the people at the top lose money.
Absolutely.
In response to that, the people at the top are preventing the people in the middle from continuing to make film.
Well, they're canceling the franchise, yeah.
Right, yeah, they're canceling. Yeah.
Okay, Destiny,
so the Force Awakens, okay, one of the most cucked films of all time, okay, the story of a cucked white man getting taken over by a strong black man and a female lead, made $2 billion, okay? The Last Jedi,
a spot on
another story
description
of horrible, evil white men, blah, 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 made $1.3 billion. These are the SJW failing horrible movies. But then our movie that has...
Oh yeah, I can't play this level without having at least hearing the soundtrack a little bit. How fucking bang is that for a soundtrack?
strong white lead male character, Solo, that only made $392 million. That's, by the way, why the Obi-Wan movie is getting canceled, is because of how fucking horrible Solo did, which was a white straight male. Do you think that they fucked that one up because... Wait, do you think instead of Solo for having the white straight male, should they have made a female lead or a black lead? Do you think that might have saved it? Rogue One box office. 1.05 billion. Fuck.
It's been a consistent decline since The Last Jedi.
Ooh, your movie makes $1 billion? I don't think people see that as necessarily
you don't, but they've cancelled further spin-offs because they're not.
Well,
I'm pretty sure the cancellation of the spin-offs happened because of how horrible Solo did, not because Rogue One made $1 billion.
No,
I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah, but the other 3 made over $1 billion, right? You said Rogue One and the other 2 Star Wars movies.
And also Rogue One made $1 billion. That came out before The Last Jedi, which made $1.3 billion. So it's
okay. This conversation is getting ridiculous. Can we move past this point now? Because obviously, I think Sargon already admitted that the profit motive is still very much in effect when Hollywood factors in making new movies.
I don't think we were arguing the same thing. I think you're arguing that making is a profit-making business. I don't think anybody disputed that. What we're saying is that there is obviously a social agenda being implemented by the people making these features. And that's not, again, if you're looking at a corporation as it's Walt Disney who makes the movies and he's the head of the company.
So you're saying that eventually movies are going to not make profit. That's what you're saying if they continue to go woke.
Yeah, isn't Star Wars just starting to really think? I should rewatch the prequels and actually pay attention. Where Palpatine says good things but does bad things is very much an analogy to corruption in modern politics. I really liked Alex Jones's breakdown of the prequels. You guys seen that? Alex Jones has a very quick breakdown, and it's very, very good. You kind of because it's almost like a comic book, but then when he breaks down the geopolitics of how the Star Wars films operate, it makes you think, actually, this is a lot smarter than I thought. Did I not hit one of the valves? There's some guy who sometimes comments on my videos saying, "Oh, I love it when you use the But I didn't do that. What the fuck? He said, I love it when you use the GoldenEye song, but like, I never use GoldenEye music in my videos. I think he might be thinking of this, because I feel like this is kind of like inspired by GoldenEye in one ways.
I don't know what this fixation is on the profit. The point is that the people that are directing these things have a social agenda that they're implementing. The point is not that there are people at the top that are commanding down and there's this grand conspiracy working. Clearly, who are the types that produce films? Who are the types that end up in these creative type positions? We know they're biased. That's all that the argument was about. You're trying to say you guys are wrong because they're canceling unprofitable movies. Well, nobody said that they were pursuing this in spite of profit. We're saying there is a social agenda, which is two different arguments.
Well, no, it's literally a dichotomy. You either pursue a social agenda or you maximize profits. It's one or the other. We're saying that maximize profits.
There's two different parties. But we're talking about an organization which is not monolithic, as Sargon said earlier.
What Nick is trying to say is that there are two separate parties. There are the people that are trying to make all of the money, and the people that are trying to assert their social opinions.
No, I understand that. It's frustrating for me because
are you guys aware of how Hollywood works at all, or are you just like speculating? There is no way that there is not a single. There isn't a movie that gets made for $200 million where every inch of that movie isn't regulated and goes all the way back to the financial institutions where they can take a look at like what's going on.
Hold on, guys. Sorry to interrupt. We got an example of woke gaming. Sounds like a woman soldier here. There we are. That's what happens when you put women in games. You have to kill them. That's going to be taken out of context, but you know what I mean.
On and ensure that it's still profitable and means tested and market ready. Do you really think that they're just going to? They would not allow like mid-level people to just like sneakily include social justice messages into it. It's psychotic to assume this.
It's the directors that are doing this.
Okay,
they're very open about it.
Okay, but they would never be able to get away with it. Is my point.
How did they lose money then?
If it wasn't financially viable, they would never be able to get away with it. Which is precisely why you can't honestly bring up a point where a company has gone under because they've like tried social justice too much.
I think this conversation has gotten to be a little bit ridiculous. So I agree.
Can I ask Nick a simple yes or no question, and then I won't have a rebuttal.
Well, we know it's not going to be a yes or no.
No, it'll be really simple yes or no. I'm genuinely just curious. No, you don't have to answer yes or no. You can explain more if you want. Do you think it's immoral in media to show interracial relationships?
I don't think it's immoral. I just don't want a social agenda being pushed by a social agenda which is so deliberate. I mean, that's what offends me, is the fact that it's so obvious and out there. And yeah, it's not something that I believe in. It's something I disagree with. I don't believe that people making advertisements should be trying to control or manipulate what we believe about certain things, and certainly not in that direction.
Okay, but you don't have any problem. Yeah, well, no, you said certainly not in that direction. Does that mean that you have a specific inclination against interracial relationships?
Yeah, I don't think it's something that should be promoted. I don't think it's
okay. All right, let's go ahead. Let's just go on to the next topic.
I like the laughing. Yeah. That'll be.
It's quite funny how they're laughing so hard at it being such a crazy thing to say, but things have gone in such a way where that's more of a normal thing people actually will say. They don't want to see that in films and movies. But back then it was really only Nick. I mean, Sargon is not piped up to say anything like that. He's kind of like holding back. Maybe he doesn't think what Nick says, but these days he'll say, well, he'll parrot very similar points to the effect of what Nick is saying right now.
It'll be really funny when you guys are bred out of existence.
All right,
yeah, dude, that's me. You don't know, man. My life is so fucking hard. I can't find any girls because they're just not black enough. They don't want anything to do with white people anymore.
All right.
Yeah,
so speaking,
how does it make you feel that I am participating in white genocide?
You sound like.
All right.
I love all these.
I want to point out also, by the way, I'm the only one here with a kid. But I don't know. I think Sargon is. Where are your children at?
Abandon the kid, but you got.
Where are your children at, Fuentes? Hey, at least I made one, man. I'm contributing to the white population. Where are your kids at?
Let's not bring shade. Maybe if you drop this paleo bullshit, you can finally get head start.
Hey, listen. Hey, guys, stop. Listen.
Let's go to the next topic.
Yes,
how about that?
Again, your gene pool is diluted,
come on,
so you
listen.
technically are also going
guys, stop with these ad hominem. Hey, stop with these ad homs. Relax.
Okay, all right. That's why I tried to end. As soon as Nick said that, I tried to go to the next topic. Didn't work though.
As
All
we'll
right,
continue.
now
As we go, we
let's talk
can't just
about
like
the
let
next
him
one.
drop that in there.
Let's go. All right,
Come
next
on.
one. Next one we
Okay,
want to talk about is the New Zealand church shooting. Now the tragedy, and this is
Oh, this is an interesting topic. This was a hot off the press back in 2019. Yeah, that was not very good optics, I must admit.
what I'm going to be reading this off the same as Train did. The tragedy in Christchurch, New Zealand, where 50 people were killed and 50 others were injured while attending a mosque, has promoted many media outlets to ask what part of online content creators play in the radicalization of terrorist attacks. The debate following the shooters posting on 8chan stating subscribe to PewDiePie and referencing many popular internet memes in the manifesto he released prior to the attack. He also stated plainly in said manifesto that he had done these things in order to try and sow dissent between the left and the right and try to further radicalize others, a point that hasn't stopped the subsequent calls for censorship. Does this panel honestly believe that the shooter was radicalized or directly incited to commit this crime by YouTubers and content creators he followed? And if so, is the appropriate response to deplatform anyone who is considered irresponsibly right-wing? I think that we should start this off.
Actually,
by-
Asmund,
Go ahead.
before we actually start this, I wanted to give you guys the opportunity. If any of you need to use the restroom or get a water, this would be the time. I actually had a
That does sound good, actually.
yeah. If you guys
Elder Scrolls edits. I saw that and honestly I felt like I need to stay off the internet for a while when I saw the Elder Scrolls Oblivion edit with PewDiePie's like portrait as if he was doing a let's play. I was like, this is... I have to go outside for a bit now.
He's gonna fucking
Yeah.
run ads, boys. He's gonna run ads.
take the time.
Hey,
to go
hey,
ahead.
I gotta pee. I gotta pee real bad.
Let him talk. Let him talk. Let him talk.
Yep. All right. What's a good time? 2 minutes? You want 2 minutes? 1 minute?
I'll need more than that. 5 at least. I'm
5
gonna go
minutes?
for a cigarette as well.
Okay.
5 minutes.
We'll take a 5-minute little break, and then we'll continue with this. I'll read it one more time once everyone gets back. Go ahead and turn your cameras off if you'd like, and we can get started again in 5 minutes. I'll put a timer on.
How do I shoot my grenade launcher? Yeah, I'll skip into a bit. Let me just fucking kill these cunts. With a mine. That was useless. How do I... Oh, that's a R1. I thought there was like a shotgun down here, but I guess not. Let's skip into a wee bit of this. Do.
And to
Right, guys, everyone's back. I'm gonna go ahead and go through it again, ask the question again, go over it for everyone that's new that missed it.
There we
that's
go.
in the chat, and for you guys, just kind of give you a little recap. So this next topic will be regarding the Christchurch shooting aftermath. The tragedy in Christchurch, New Zealand, where 50 people were killed and 50 others injured while attending a mosque, has prompted many media outlets to ask what part online content creators play in the radicalization of terrorist attackers. This debate following the shooters posting the 8chan stating, subscribe to PewDiePie, and referencing many popular internet memes in the manifesto he released prior to the attack. He also stated,
How fucked up would that be? If you're just some YouTuber that makes videos about Minecraft and shit, and all of a sudden some guy who kills like 50 people is like, says your name is one of the last things he says that's like live streamed on Facebook. I mean, I don't even know how to begin to think how PewDiePie would have like felt about the whole situation. That would have been so fucked up.
stated plainly in said manifesto that he had done these things in order to try and sow dissent between the left and right groups to try and further radicalize others, a point that hasn't stopped the subsequent calls for censorship. Does the panel honestly believe that the shooter was radicalized or directly incited to commit his crime by YouTubers and content creators he followed? And if so, is the appropriate response to deplatform anyone who is considered irresponsibly right-wing?
I think the best place to start here would probably be Nick. I mean, he was part of the Charlottesville, what would you really call that? The get-together, the riot, whatever you want to say. And obviously,
Go with Nazi protest.
Okay. You know, you were involved with that, and so how do you feel like? Do you feel like this was in any way influenced by that Charlottesville event? And do you feel like this person?
Murdoch watch stream when? I'm maybe thinking that next week. Need to get a few things together. But I'll get my Rumble thing sorted soon, so what I'll do is we'll do like a stream. I'm thinking maybe like, no, I'm out of bullets here. I'm thinking maybe like next Saturday. Because I'm going to do like a normal stream this Saturday, I think. Next Saturday what we'll do kind of like a stream for like an hour or something. And then after an hour, we'll turn on the Rumble stream. Make the Rumble stream debut. And we'll kind of watch along to some of our favourite Murdochs. How does that sound? That sounds pretty good.
Who did commit the shooting in New Zealand was influenced by these people on YouTube?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I'll say at the outset that advocacy for violence by people on the right, and particularly the white identitarian or white advocacy, even people adjacent to that, is basically not tolerated. So, for example, if you look at any number of right-wing or white identitarian content creators, you really can't find among them one that is explicitly calling for something like this. Even somebody like Richard Spencer, who I think everybody would say is the leader of the alt-right and the progenitor of even the term alt-right, as the protege of Paul Gottfried. They created that term. Even he doesn't say that you should go out and commit acts like this. So it's hard for me to say that there's a genesis for that in content creation explicitly. I will say, however, and this isn't whataboutism. I know people are going to say this is whataboutism, but I'll explain myself because it's an important point to make. You had this shooting on a Friday. A few days later, you had a shooting in the Netherlands committed by a Muslim. The day after, you had an Italian migrant from Senegal set a school bus on fire with 50 children inside, and he was protesting these migrant policies that Salvini was implementing. And I don't mean to say that to say everybody does things, you know, and that is partially true. But the important point to make here is that the natural consequence of multiracialism, the natural consequence of multiculturalism is conflict. And so I see an act like this being carried out as basically inevitable. This is something I've been warning about for years. You know, a lot of people say that I'm alt-right or a white nationalist. An alt-right white nationalist type of person wants to create an ethno-state. They want to take America and either deport non-white people or segment off their white separatists. They want to segment off a white section, secede, something like that, which is not something I believe in. I think that we've basically made our bed demographically. You know, things are going to happen. White people become a minority. But I believe that there are certain consequences from this, which is that you have a lot of different people coming together with a lot of different values, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different beliefs. When they're all living in close proximity and they're fighting for the same resources from government, they're fighting for the same jobs and things like that. When they're, again, right up against each other, sharing the same transportation, sharing the same public facilities and so on, the natural inclination is violence. And you can say that that's a bad thing. I agree. I'm not trying to justify or rationalize. I think violence is always a bad thing. I'm very anti-violence. However, I don't think you can separate the consequence of this multiracialism policy so cleanly. You know, I think you see it, everybody, when they get smashed together, you get this kind of conflict. So sure, you know, you could see that he probably uses some of the same talking points as a lot of YouTubers. YouTubers don't call for mosque shootings, but I think regardless of who you look at or what content they look at, this is the consequence of a lot of different people, diversity essentially living together in one country.
Do you think types of YouTubers led him in the direction of doing this? Maybe they didn't necessarily tell him, go shoot up a mosque, but they led him down the ideology that gave him the conclusion to shoot up a mosque.
Well, insofar as he was stating facts about white displacement in white countries, you could say that he got that data, but that data is available from the government. I think who was really culpable for this kind of thing is the censors, is the media, because you want to know the truth. And this is something I've been talking about on my show for a long time. The reason you get violent people is they say there's no way for me to fix what I see happening in the country through government or media. I can't talk about it. I'd lose my job. I'd get my social media account shut down. The people in media aren't talking about it. The politicians aren't talking about it. I cannot affect change within the system through legitimate means. What's the only alternative in that event? Now, it's not a rational thing to do. You know, a rational person does not say, I'm going to be a martyr, because obviously not only are the effects the opposite of what you want, but also this is not something that a sane, normal person does, to go up and, you know, shoot up a place of worship. So I think that more than anybody, who's culpable is the people saying that, you know, if we're trying to express grievance about what's happening to countries or what's happening with demographics, and that conversation is shut down, people are denied a seat at the table. I think the conclusion then is for certain types of psychopaths in the society is, well, I'll take matters into my own hand. So I think the real
argument. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
go
I
ahead.
do. Well, let me finish this. So your argument basically is that this violence is an outcome of these people not feeling like they can achieve any sort of a change or be able to even approach a change on their own terms, and so they resort to violence. Is that basically what? Okay, well, let's go over to Sargon. Sargon, you have a YouTube channel, and a lot of people call you right wing. Accurate or inaccurate, that's what they say. Do you feel like this person was influenced at all by people on YouTube? Maybe not like yourself, but like other people that are on there that are making content that could lead him in this direction?
I think it's a very misleading question to think that any one political direction ends in violence. The problem isn't that communities exist. The problem, I think that Nick actually really hit the nail on the head there, is when people feel that they cannot actually get any kind of legitimate redress for their grievances. And I think a really good example of this is actually the YouTube shooter. She was just demonetized. She didn't come from a...
Yeah, what was that girl's story again? I know of that story, that woman who looked kind of funny. She got her like channel demonetized and shot up, or tried to shoot up the YouTube headquarters. What sort of content was she even making? Why did they... What was the whole kind of lore behind all that? And did she go to jail, or did she get iced by the police at the time? So you fucking trying to aim in this game, it's like before Call of Duty, so they hadn't really kind of figured out how to like best make aiming. So you have like the sort of like auto aim that's okay, and it's free aim that's like fucking really... it's a bit, I would say it's a bit wonky. I feel like if this was on a mouse and keyboard, it would be like easy mode. Maybe that's the whole point. Oh no.
Deeply ideological community. I mean, she might have done, but that wasn't the reason that she did this. She went and did it because she just felt she had no rights against YouTube. And there was obviously something that was deeply important to her, the fact that she could make videos. So I think that it's kind of a red herring. Because, I mean, if it was the alt-right that was just a sort of effectively like a jihadi community, then why aren't we seeing alt-right murders literally every day? You know, like we do with jihadis, in fact. You know, it's not something that I think is necessarily inherent to any one community, because I mean literally everyone has their shooters. You know, every single community, point to a community and I'll be able to point you to the shooters that come out of it. I think it's an act of desperation by individuals who just feel they just have nothing else to lose.
So you guys are in agreement there, basically.
Well, yeah, on this particular analysis, yeah, I think.
All right.
And I mean, again, like to suggest that this is any one person. Well, I mean, we know what radicalized the guy. He was very explicit about this in his manifesto, and it wasn't social media. So this is again a total red herring.
Wait, why did he do the shootings? You said you know why.
Because he went to France.
Okay, and then what was his?
Do you want me to read it out for you? I actually have it up on my screen here.
Well, I mean, I've read it.
Sargon's got it saved to his desktop.
Let's go ahead.
Well, I mean, my
reads it every
interpretation
morning.
is his literal.
Let's have.
What's your interpretation?
Let's have Hassan.
Wait, I'm sorry. His mic cut out real quick. Your interpretation with his literal what?
His literal words.
Okay. Why did he do the shooting?
Real quick.
Okay,
Let's have wait, hold on, real quick. Let's have Hassan and Destiny give us their take, and then we can confer.
Yeah.
Or you guys
we'll
can
talk
confer.
about what he said specifically.
Go ahead, Destiny. You started off.
So The question of whether or not like a YouTuber made this particular guy go out and do a shooting is going to be really hard to establish that chain. If you did read this guy's manifesto, this guy was like an extreme like alt-right figure. So for instance, he viewed all Muslims in every country were seen as foreign invaders, and at this point, he thought that government was ineffective as a means to actually remove them from the country. So like Nick said, he did feel like he couldn't rely on government to do something, but he wanted to rely on government to literally kick out all Muslims from New Zealand. So he felt that he needed to go to a place and target and kill the most amount of Muslims possible, and he went to a mosque and did it. I don't know what the alternative to that is. If Nick is suggesting that maybe we need ways for these people to address their grievances about Muslims existing in countries.
Was he just a skit? So I never read his manifesto, so I don't know if it had any kind of, anything behind it that seems like... I mean, Sargon seems to say that what he wrote didn't seem out of hand, but obviously it's the same kind of Ted Kaczynski thing, you can't really rationalize killing a bunch of people. The only thing it does is draw attention to what you're doing. That's what all it really comes down to, is like, what are you willing to do to draw attention to something? And some people go, arguably, maybe a bit too far.
I know that he vaguely referred to a couple of I guess attacks by migrants in other countries to show that migrants are bad or something. I am familiar with the one thing that he referenced.
Please let Destiny finish.
Okay, yeah, I am familiar with the one that Italian hijacking, that dude that was going to blow that bus up. The person that actually stopped that from happening was actually a little Egyptian kid that Italy is now granting citizenship to, because that 13-year-old kid actually called his dad on the phone while he was pretending to pray while the guy was collecting phones. I am familiar with that story.
I heard the exact same argument with the Bondi shooting. It was like, guys, we have to like take that right wing, take that. It was actually a Muslim that stopped the Muslim shooter. And like, what the fuck are you talking about? If neither of these people were here, we wouldn't need a savior, and we wouldn't have the terrorist. It's just an own goal. But again, they don't want to argue through that lens, because they just want to win. They don't care about being right. They just want to win. And I think that's sometimes what we need to kind of like focus on in a way, and it sounds counterproductive, because we already have the truth on our side. So we don't necessarily need to worry about convincing people of the truth. We already have the truth. We need to focus on winning more, because right now we're fucking losing. It's a good tune as well, actually, don't you not think? I might use this one in the video. Doom, doom. Yeah, the music I tend to pick, it has to have a good sort of like tone to it. It needs to be kind of like a... Can't be too fast, can't be too percussion-y, kind of, oh my fucking god. It can't be too in your face, it has to be kind of in the background, get a good vibe on the go. Yeah. Take a mental note of this, you'll probably hear this in the next video.
I don't know about the rest of them, maybe they're bullshit, I don't know. But regardless, I mean, I do think that like hateful rhetoric can lead to hateful acts of violence. I mean, that chain is to establish that is very complicated. People maybe listen to a few jokes in one place, start posting on poll in another place, start getting drafted into more extremist groups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of people that are really good gateways for this. I mean, people have written up so many different types of studies for how you can start watching a Joe Rogan video and then go to Jordan Peterson and then wind up with more extremist figures like Nick Fuentes or maybe Lauren Southern or something like that, and then eventually go down that.
That doesn't happen anymore. I used to love a YouTube rabbit hole, but that literally does not exist anymore. It always brings you back to John Oliver. You watch a video about Nick Fuentes and what's recommended? John Oliver. And you watch a video about just any sort of news story, and then you get something about Jimmy Kimmel. And it's just... I love the YouTube deep dive, because it used to, you would all of a sudden be looking into one topic. 2 hours later, you're watching like a video about how to like smelt iron in your back garden with like a homemade furnace. That just doesn't happen anymore. I don't know about you guys, but it just doesn't quite work that way.
That extremist road, but establishing that chain is a very complicated, very difficult thing to do.
Then YouTube will recommend Jimmy the Giant. Has anyone seen any of his new videos? Should I like shit on Jimmy the Giant anymore? Because what I appreciate about Jimmy the Giant in ways is he's given me some content. Like, 'cause I really like the takedown of that ginger guy I did. I thought that was a good video. But there's just not that many of these guys who are... The way in which they articulate their views is open to critique, as opposed to just being so ideologically blind that there's no point in me even making a video against them. If that makes sense. So I did try to find other sort of... I escaped the alt-right sort of like pipeline There's not many of these videos. So it makes me think that that ginger guy I covered, I'm still debating whether or not he was just like, he's been paid to like make that video. Because it just seems so ingenuine. Or maybe I'm just setting a too high expectation of how people think. Because maybe some people's thought process really is that. He really does believe just the next thing somebody tells him. And they got a brown wife. That's that was a pretty big factor.
Yeah.
But
I
you,
mean, to
you
deny
do
its
think
existence
it's
is really
possible, though, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, of course.
And also, I think at the beginning of your statement, you did kind of give a little bit of credence to Nick and also Sargon's point that maybe he acted out in this way because he didn't feel like he was able to discuss these issues without being, isolated or, hated for it.
Oh yeah, sure, but that doesn't mean that I think that those views are legitimate or need to be platformed. I think that's a bad dichotomy, right? If somebody says like, I want to kill all black people, like, well, I'm going to fire you if you say that on Twitter, and then they go out and they actually kill black people because they got banned from Twitter, you wouldn't say, well, hold on, like, should we be suppressing this man's views? He felt like he had nowhere to express them, and now he actually well, no. I mean, the idea is we need to not have people have these horrendously anti-immigrant views in society, right? So views like Fuentes pushes, for instance, where he seems to be anti-immigrant or anti-person of color or whatever, moving into certain countries where he feels like it violates their Western culture or whatever, however he dog whistles.
Yeah, just a lot of straw men here.
Well, let's go ahead and let
Jimmy's latest video has a very soy-looking thumbnail. Might be worth it. Are you familiar with the Leather Apron Club and his videos? That ginger dude you showed did a great debunking. Oh, I did a great debunking on him, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll maybe check out Jimmy the Giant's recent stuff. There's actually a video my mate showed me. It's a guy called... Is it Nemo? Or Nimon or something like that. He's like some mixed race guy in the UK. He went to one of the Tommy Robinson rallies where there's like thousands of people. And he like went undercover, had like a mask on and everything. And he was like walking up to the kind of people who were there, just trying to expose them. You know, he would try like, he tried to, be their friend, pretend he's one of them. Just to kind of trick them into really just expressing themselves. And I saw some of it, and I can understand why it's not really that good a look for the people he quote-unquote exposed. Because these people who are maybe marching the protest, I mean, they may not be the most articulate, maybe not the most intelligent, but they know deep in their gut there's something wrong. So they may not be able to express themselves in a way that is palatable to the liberal mind, but you need to give these people a voice as well. You need to kind of hear their woes, which is obviously what our establishment doesn't do. It just writes it all off as these people are just bigots, these people need to shut up for progress, and really the sooner or later these people don't exist, the happier the government's going to be. So it's no wonder that they don't care for them or do anything to help them. I'm in my groove now. This game was a bit kind of janky and the first kind of picking up there, but I'm starting to only need like 20,000 points to get gold, so let's maybe just die so I can unlock the next level.
Let's go over to Hassan.
Yeah, Hassan, go ahead.
Okay.
Nico,
so
thank you.
Before we get started, I just want to say I want to commend Nick for being a phenomenal orator and sneaking in multiple lines in there. For example, including calling the shooter a martyr and making it seem as though it was an unavoidable and ultimately rational cause that he had to go out and shoot someone. I mean, obviously, there was just no other way. There was simply no other way for this shooter to express his outrage for coexisting with humans that look a little different than them. And maybe insane to me. But beyond that, the problem right now is that these sorts of lone wolf style attacks is considered as, and I'm going to have a hard time saying this word, stochastic terrorism, okay? Stochastic terrorism is when there is an overwhelming amount of public demonization that leads to a person or a group that goes out and radicalizes through social media or other forms and commits an act of terror. There is a reason why there are different restrictions placed upon hate speech or this sort of like information being disseminated in other Western democratic nations. And that reason isn't to like hide the truth. It's actually to stop the misinformation from flooding. And obviously this has happened over and over again, and it's continuing to grow. And overwhelmingly, it's right-wing nationalism that is a gigantic problem here in the United States and somewhat worldwide as well.
Well, let's look at how much of a problem that actually is, because
I'm
Sargon,
fucking
you
this up
said a
here.
minute ago that you actually did have the manifesto up there, and you wanted to explain what the shooter's actual intention.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how they're like reading this manifesto, but it'd be pretty bad optics for me to read out the manifesto of the Christchurch shooter right now. That would not be a good look. So I'm gonna let these guys do it.
Were. So if you want to go ahead and expand on that.
Okay, well, before I do, I think being the resident centrist in the room,
Cringe.
I think it's important to note that the only reason we're concerned about right-wing nationalism is because of the cultural dominance of the left. Left-wing ideas are platformed everywhere. Radical left-wing ideas are platformed everywhere, and this is just something obviously the two left-wingers here can't own, but it's definitely true. And the reason that the far right, the sort of the counterbalance to the Hassan Pikers of the world, aren't being platformed everywhere else is because of this. And it's not because their ideas aren't horrific. They are horrific. But I don't
the
think
radical left.
Could you describe what my perspective is that is violent, just as violent as like a Nazi?
Don't get touched by the flaming zombies. I'll keep that in mind. I didn't know that was the strategy, but I'll try that.
Claiming that
don't get hit.
race mixing is the same as like genocide.
I don't think he's saying that.
Yeah, I don't think I said that.
Well,
no,
I
you said that left-wing ideas that are extreme are being platformed, right? Yeah. Whereas the right-wing equivalent of those ideas are not. There is a major difference between the radical extreme ideas and the radical extreme right-wing ideas. So I'm just trying to make sure that you understand that if someone is talking about an economic structure, which is what I do quite frequently, like seizing the means of production or redistributing wealth, or giving people universal healthcare. I mean, these are concepts that have been proven and have worked in all of these other countries. Talking about them is nowhere near.
We can't go down this, right? It's too big a subject. No, because
can I finish? Stop.
No, because what you've said is demonstrably false, right? And it's going to lead us into a massive conversation about Marxism. And it's not really worth getting into that because that will be
it's not worth getting into it because I think you're a little out of your depth, and that's precisely.
Well, I know I'm not.
You apply this flat logic, and I'm just trying to make sure that
but we can discuss it another time. We can do a stream where we discuss it.
Okay, the problem is Nazis are not the same as like people who are on the left. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, I don't think
Nazis and communists are not the same thing.
Guys, let's calm down. Let's fall back to the original question that Hassan had.
Can you give us an example? Hassan asked a question to Sargon. Can you give me an example of extreme left-wing opinions?
Well, yeah, just any communist is an extreme left-wing opinion.
Like, do you think that communist opinions are socially acceptable in the society right now?
No, well, they are, but they shouldn't be. I mean, like, for example, in my country today, right,
So you want censorship for the Nazis and the communists?
Well, no, I think they should both be talked to, actually. But it's what I mean is, I'll give you an example from my country. We're a bit more left-wing than America. But your universities are overrun with this. But so there's a program called BBC Question Time. The BBC is meant to be a neutral, impartial arbiter of discussion, and the panel that they had was 4 left-wingers, including a literal communist, and then a kind of centrist conservative being the counterpoint. And
that's always how the Question Time in the UK is done. It's like 4 lefties and one kind of centrist guy that kind of occasionally goes, well, hold on a minute. I think that's a little bit far. And that's it. That's literally what happens in a debate with the BBC. It's just so gay. I'm not doing very well on the zombie one, so let's just do the next mission. I think it's the Chicago mission. Another great track that I've used sometimes in videos.
And that in my country, that goes to show you just the overwhelming left-wing bias.
Wait, hold on. So your counterpoint to the left's version of the New Zealand shooter is a BBC show that nobody cares about that has 4 left wingers on it.
No, it's not Destiny. But I know that you'd like to think that would be the case.
We'll keep going. Keep going. Sorry.
Could you talk about examples of left-wing violence that is similar in nature to right-wing violence that we're seeing all around the world? And then once you're done with that, could you point back to Marxist theory that actually...
So the terrorism worldwide... You've got the jihadis, then you've got communists, then you've got other. and it's a massive gap between the jihadis and the communists, and then the communists another. So, don't give me this, right? Communism is an inherently...
Is there like a network of communist...
I realize you don't want to hear, but from the liberal perspective, communism is inherently violent. And there's no getting around that. I mean, it's in the manifesto.
Wait, what's inherently violent?
Revolutionary.
Oh,
communism.
We're really gonna...
that's not true.
It's absolutely true, which is why communism has never even been attempted without violence.
Okay. The reason there are many different schools of thought.
There are lots of excuses.
Hold on,
this
real
is
quick.
why I didn't.
Wait, where does capitalism? Wait, guys,
one at a time. Destiny, go ahead. Destiny.
Another fucking banger. Absolute banger. Yeah, this debate goes on for another hour and a bit. And like many, many debates, very little's achieved. If anything, these debates, looking back on, they're never really about trying to convince the other side. It's all about engagement farming. But in a way, sometimes people do listen to these things and they do get... Oh, bear with me. At least a few people may look in on this and have their minds changed. If you were kind of like, you occasionally watched a bit of Destiny, thought this guy talks fast, this guy's quite smart. And you hear him in an actual debate and you think, this guy's actually a fanny. He's just a bit of a dickhead. Why did I like this guy again? But I suppose, the debates are good for... You're not really trying to ever convince... You're not trying to convince the other person, you're trying to convince the audience. I think that's a good way to look at it. You're trying to convince the audience. Because there's no point trying to think when you're on the stage. I mean, Nick Fuentes with Ben Shapiro. He's not going to convince Ben Shapiro. What was that dinosaur video? Oh, this was actually a great clip. This is something my missus told me about. It's like the PlayStation 1, a PS1 T-Rex tech demo. This was like you used to get demos in your PlayStation. This used to be kind of like one of the, not a demo, maybe like a tech demo to show off. And like I loosely remember it, and she showed me it the other night. And I thought I need to use that in a video ASAP because it was such a cool little beat. It's scary as well. Yeah, imagine that when you're like 7 years old. It's a bass tune. There's like a manta ray one as well. So let's just keep that beat going. If you want a great... This is a great debate. I'll put this in the chat link.
Yeah, what's your Frank side of the show? I mean, what the fuck this motherfucker...
I listened to this like 10 times like years ago. And again, it's one of those things you rediscover and you think, oh, what a gem. So if anyone doesn't know, I'm going to wind the stream down. But I'll leave you guys with this. This was back in the day when... I don't know when. It says re-uploaded, so I don't know exactly when this was. But the lore was Boogie2988. Everyone's favourite Blow Cow. This was before he like shot the gun. This is the lore leading up to Boogie shooting the gun at the school or towards the school. Is that Ralph Amell? Yeah, he's another kind of lol cow figure that I don't know much about. Ethan Ralph. One of my mates showed me like a video and he's like talking to the camera like this. His eyes are closed and he's like blatantly so fucking wasted. It was like almost sad to watch. Not sure what he's up to these days, but this is just such a great one. There's a lot of lore. Yeah, maybe I'm just talking out loud here, but I don't think that'd be quite funny. I make of these kind of like semi-serious but kind of interesting little elements of humor in my videos, but kind of like serious topics. And then maybe the next video is like a Boogie2988 lore dump in my kind of style. Would you guys watch that? That'd be kind of funny, wouldn't it? We just pick like a lol cow, and then that's what the channel becomes.
Got to say. because I'm about to tear into you, Frank. So let's let you get the first word, baby.
Okay. Well, you know, what I saw was a man who is like afraid to be helped. Like I saw clips where somebody was on his stream. Somebody was on his stream saying that I was going to go to his house and.
Lol cows are boring. I think it depends what you regard as a lol cow. Like it's a word thrown around a lot. Like people like think Chris Chan is a bit of a lol cow because he's like a Fallout character. His life is just crazy, but he's like mentally ill. I don't really see him as like a lol cow that you would enjoy poking fun at. He's just too, because he is mentally not there. People like Boogie, Wings of Redemption. Who else comes to mind? They're like the main two, Boogie and Wings of Redemption, because they're self-aware, and they almost like, if you like play like Skyrim or Oblivion or World of Warcraft, it's like they play life with a permanent debuff all the time, and it's like ruining their life in every single step of the way, and that's why it's quite funny. Boogie has made me so sad with his patheticness. That's why it's funny. Just when you think somebody can hit rock bottom, you know, like in Minecraft, you hit bedrock, Boogie finds new layers of depth to fall to. And that's what's impressive. Thanks for the 5. Thank you for the stream. A retrospective on Boogie in your style would be a good watch. That could be funny. I mean, again, with my kind of like channel, I like the content I do. I like to kind of mix it up. And with my more free time available to me, it would be nice to have... I don't want the channel to be just dry and boring. I do want it to be engaging in a way where they see a video, regardless of what it will be, they'll like click on it and be entertained. Because the documentaries I cover, see if you watch the documentary in full, it's tedious, it's quite boring, but there is valuable stuff to learn from it. So I try to like condense it in a way where it's more digestible, while I drip in my little elements of propaganda, my own propaganda, which I'm sure you guys appreciate in some way. This kind of like lore dump stuff, I mean, this is sort of like Turkey Tom territory, which I know Turkey Tom's been like Me Too'd or something. I don't know the lore about that. Again, you have to, there's so much lore, you have to like pick and choose who you want to follow for like silly, retarded internet stuff. For me, I was like a lurker in this. I found this great pattern. I found this really, really funny. Because it led up to something. It led up to the whole kind of, let's just skip this. Let's just see. Frank Hassel, Boogie, gun. We're not going to find the original video, are we? We're just going to have lots of what's his face? Keemstar. Yes. Here we go.
What's up?
Shut the fuck up. Let's find an actual video. We all know. We all know anyways. But this debate, quote unquote, was like my favorite part of it. Boogie with the Magnum. I mean, that's pretty based. I mean, see, like, if you get a picture of you, like, pointing a gun, I mean, that's quite cool. But he wasn't able to, like, transmute that into anything positive. He just ended up getting a felony charge, which is kind of gay.
Like, do all this stuff to him. He's posting about how he thinks.
Let's see if I can find anyone timestamp anything good.
Oh, absolutely not. I make more money off my investments each day than you make, Frank.
Wow.
Come on, are you kidding? Yeah, that's silly. I do okay. I do okay with my investments.
He doesn't think he does do okay. Isn't he like dirt broke and he's like in serious debt? Remember that other part of Boogie lore? He like released that what did he do? He released that crypto coin as like a blatant scam, fatty coin. That was funny.
Wait, you said you were poor though.
Yeah, you said you were poor. You said you were poor. Oh, that's a lie.
Well, congratulations.
I'm gonna
man.
buy
I'm
your
happy
fucking
for you.
house,
Good.
bro.
Okay, well, the mortgage isn't that bad. It's only like $1,800 a month. You can afford it. In Arkansas, it's cheap state.
It is very economical.
Yeah, this house is only worth about $300,000. Man, come get it.
I might.
There's one neighbor. There's one in the,
Oh man. And what else has been going on the internet these days? I was watching some of the. This is the last thing I'll leave with you guys. This is the sort of slop I sometimes watch. I was watching the fish tank auditions. These are pretty funny. The people auditioning to go in fish tank. They're not accepting anyone from Europe because it's just expensive to get people out. Do you think I would do well in fish tank? Do you think I should have auditioned?
I'm turning on you, Goyam, at my first chance.
The guy looks like Billy Bob and Sling Blade.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm applying to be on Fish Tank because I'm in a rut in my life and finding it hard to get out of it.
I think what I would do well in fish tank is because I don't actually want to be on fish tank. That's why I think I would be good on fish tank. I don't want to be on it because surrounded by these people who I would hold in utter contempt. There might be a few schizos I'd befriend, a few kind of like crazy people, but I think I would go insane. But if I was to go in, I'd be like, I'm going in to win this fucking thing. I would go in to win it. But they need people like that in the show, yeah. But I would go in and be like, listen, I don't want to be here, but I'm gonna win. I just don't think some of the stuff they do, like being like spat on. That is like, oh, that would be very difficult to be spat on by one. See if this guy spat on me, I would fucking lose it. I don't know how I would cope. That's like MK Ultra, CIA kind of black site torture. That's what they do to people in order to break them. But I would be stoic. I would be based Ubermensch. I would get through it.
I'm a 29-year-old ex-Mormon virgin that works at a school as a janitor.
He's 29. I'm 30. It's pretty fucked up, isn't it?
What's with
Texas?
like? Why are you wearing a children's shirt? The fuck, dude! You guys are weird, man.
The pastel colors.
Like, fuck, dude, I'm done even giving a fuck, bro. Like, if you don't like me after this, that's cool. Whatever. It's fucking weird, bro. It's just weird. I don't know why. You don't have to fucking like me. Just wear a different fucking shirt, you fucking weirdo. Baby shirt, yeah.
I wear a baby shirt and I wear.
That's true. See some of these auditions, it's like it opens your eyes to the spectrum of humanity that's out there, and it's at the very least, it's to remind yourself. But yeah, that was alright. That was a fun little stream. I enjoyed that. As I said, I'll probably stream again. I was going to do it tomorrow, but I've got like a driving thing I need to do. So I'll probably go again Saturday. And then I'll make a stream maybe next Saturday. Again, I'll probably stream again next week on Wednesday, something like that. And then Saturday, we're going to do the... I'm pretty sure figuring out Rumble is easy enough, but we're going to do like the Murdoch watch-along stream. Because I need to start actually doing the... Because I'm doing some traveling in March. Late March. So I need to get I want to get the book finished. I want to get the Always the Horizon audiobook finished. Because I would like to kind of drop that as I arrive when I'm traveling. You thought I was a Zoomer. I told you, I'm aging very gracefully. Do you not think? I mean, I don't know what the camera makes of me, but you know, the name Old Sterling, it will stand the test of time. As time goes by, we will actually become old. But yeah, I'm an old cunt, I'm afraid. But yeah, I'm gonna finish doing the audio book of Always the Horizon and drop that. As I said, hopefully, because I want to try backlog videos. I want to try to make as much as possible. So when I travel, while I'll still be able to make videos and do streaming, I will at least have... Ideally, I want to be ahead of myself, so I don't have the pressure to release stuff. 30 being old a psyop. I think you're as old as you feel you are, and I feel like I'm kind of... don't know, actually, I don't know how old I feel. Early 20s, I mean, when I was like 18, 19, It's hard to say because back then I was just drinking and smoking so much that I don't even know how I felt, to be honest. 30 doesn't really feel old, but I will say, when I got like when I went at my old job, I turned 30. They gave me like a birthday card with everyone signed their name on it. The card didn't have anything on it. It just said 30. And I was looking at it. I gotta say, it was pretty blackpilling. That was a pretty blackpilling experience. But you get over it in 2 weeks, and that's it. So if anyone's coming 30, it'll be blackpilling, but then it'll be over, and then you're gonna be so back. That sounds terrible. It's you gotta go over it. But yeah, I think that's what I'll leave you with. That message that is semi-white pilled. But anyways, what's the weather like? It's nice and clear. I'm gonna go take the little dog out. Actually, I'm gonna get the dog to say hello on stream, and then I'm gonna shut this down. Come on. There you are. There you are. There she is. Oh, she's sleeping. You've been sleeping all day. You've just been sleeping all day. Dog breed, it's like a Labradoodle, I think. What are you? What are you again? What are you? Da 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 da. Got myself the complete HP Lovecraft collection. I have the exact same here. Let me just show off. Boom. Whole collection. A fucking tome. Huge tome of schizophrenic writings that are pretty interesting, I must say. I quite like some of the stories I liked. Is it the oh, what's the one? Is it the Witch on the Doorstep or something like that? Or The Color of Space? I think that's quite a cool one. Her name is like Capri, like a Capri Sun. It's like a British drink. Like a... So her name's Capri. Not Capri like the car, but Capri like Capri Sun. What are you doing? Do. I'm fucking starving as well. Right, guys, go to the gym today. We're gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna take the dog out for a walk, eat some food, and go to the gym. We're gonna do a back day. Back, probably a bit of arms. Oh, I feel nice. Yes. Back and arms, and then maybe legs. But if I said that, I'd just be lying to you guys. We're not doing fucking legs today. So, I'll see you later. Oh, fucking shat myself there.